All right, everybody. Sorry we're a little bit late. We were having a lot of fun behind backstage before before this all gets started. But yeah, crazy few days. I definitely was spending more time. I had to actually go out and take a walk yesterday because I was just like I'm spending too much time staring at my phone looking at all of the mess that is going on the internet since
No,
there's
thankfully I was distracted by having the depressive act of dropping our daughter back off at college yesterday.
Oh man.
So I was forced back outside and to confront the sadness of the real world beyond the computer screen. It's terrible. But yeah, but thankfully we have this wonderful film to talk about.
Well, and that's the other part of it is that
further.
like this might be, I don't know, like the least worthy of analysis film perhaps that we have we have done.
100%.
And so we'll talk about all of that. But yeah, it was a big film in the 80s. What should we say? Anyway, welcome, Jared. Thank you for joining us. Shout out.
Thank you all again. No, this is my favorite series. I appreciate it, and it's necessary. Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate it.
I mean, I knew because first of all, first of all, it's a couple of things on why we asked Jared to do this one with us. I mean, one, I Mix What I Like, obviously influenced by I Write What I Like by Steve Biko, right? The other was also the Denzel connection because, obviously you've spoken and critiqued for years the Malcolm X movie by Spike Lee, which Denzel plays a leading role in. And this is just a few years early, and I think he's doing, I mean, I won't place the blame necessarily on him other than he took up the roles to do it. But, these films are doing similar things with the legacies of these figures. And so
I've definitely said for a long time Denzel has played two of my favorite people in two of the worst films about them, and revisiting this one, this is worse than Malcolm X. If I could have even, I wouldn't have thought so. I don't know if I would have thought that initially going back into it, but it's worse. It's worse. It's like, so yeah, I think to your point already, I think what the three of us are about to do is wringing out as much political value out of this trash as possible, and in some ways, giving it undue credit and undue focus. It should just be, I was thinking of Samantha actually, and her point, like we shouldn't even be watching this shit. Like this is where I heard her most in my head. I was like, I shouldn't even be watching this for a critique. And I watched it with my girls who had not seen it.
Oh wow.
So they've heard me talk about Biko a little bit over the years. So I did I did a preamble before we started the movie. I said, I got to say a few words about the real Biko, just as because I know what we're about to do. I said, and then I did tell them I'm seeing this for this purpose. We're watching it for this show's like to critique it. I'm not, because I was clear, like this, I don't want you to count this as Dad's film list. Like, because we have the list of films I felt like I need them to see or I want them to see. This one was, for business purposes, so to speak. And then midway through it, we literally, I think, had to take a bathroom break or something. And right after Biko's death, and they stopped the film, and they're like, "Wait, there's still like 90 minutes left in the movie." And we're like, "Oh my god!"
That moment, that realization right there that you just described of Biko's dead, and you pause it and you look at how much is left, and you're like, wait, how is there another full movie worth of material after this?
And then, of course, because it's just, I think it's also just not, I think, a great film. So even if you don't care about the politics or don't care or know anything about, if you wanted to just sit down and just see a film, to my daughter's point, like, I think they would have been okay if the film had, they'd have been like, their initial reaction wasn't the politics. It was like, this is kind of slow. It's kind of, and now he's dead and there's still this much more. They were like, what are we doing? And I was like, yeah, the point. So yeah, it was.
Yeah, like A Dry White Season is more watchable.
Oh,
I still think that movie is pretty trash too. But not as trash as this, but still, like, it's watchable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can get through a dry white season. I don't want to, but I can. This was like, I said, this is the first Imperial 80s watch by choice. I said, I'm breaking this into 2 parts, man. I'm good, man. Like, I need a moment.
I broke it into multiple parts, and it wasn't even by choice. It was just like, I can't take any more of this right now. This is terrible. And we'll talk about it, but
maybe
there probably will be a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, there probably will be a little bit less analysis. I don't know whether we'll make it to the 4 hours this time. But we're not gonna do a full scene by scene walkthrough of some of this shit, because it's just like there's a lot of it. Is like the last 90 minutes of the movie is essentially a chase scene, like, you know, like a slow chase. It's like the white Bronco.
And exactly. Like and jovial laughs between an Africana and black folks. It's like what the fuck is this shit? This is your safari, like through enlightened consciousness. Oh my god! Like, this is where you will start throwing shit at the screen, but I don't want to break my screen.
No, we're not breaking up family furniture for this nonsense. Like, you gotta.
So
should we go? Yeah.
Let's just do early. I mean, so I remember this movie. My father showed it to me. I don't know how old I was. My father did recognize that it was a kind of like, he was like, he's like, it's supposed to be a movie about Steve Biko, but like most of it is about this guy Donald Woods. Like, so he did recognize that it was kind of some bullshit. But I think also, and this is one of the things I think I was thinking about as I was watching this, is just in the 80s, like what people had access in terms of information and ability to easily do like kind of political education. And, you know, like you had libraries, you know, you had whatever was in the public library about stuff. You had Hollywood films, and then if you were really tapped in and knew some stuff, you might know some documentaries, right? Or some, like, you know, but
PBS.
all of that would require some kind of like institutional access, really, if you got beyond just kind of PBS or something like that. And so in that vein, like, my father would show me movies like this and then correct or add on what he kind of, you know, knew additionally, which was also limited by the media environment and everything else that he was, you know, in. And so he did know that it was like, I think, kind of some bullshit, but also, yeah. So anyways, I remember watching it. I remember thinking, you know, and I did grow up thinking, God, like, South Africa's, you know, the apartheid government is terrible, right? All of that kind of stuff. Thinking of, you know, the racism and stuff like that, you know, as abhorrent and all of that. You know, there's a particular feeling I have over the years now, though, over like the way that Black Death is kind of shown in these films, and like a kind of, there's a whole dehumanization, which I'm sure we'll get into as we discuss it, of like how a film that's supposed to be this kind of liberal anti-racist film, which is what it is, you know, participates also in these kind of both paternalizing and dehumanizing logics, even as it's kind of talking about them, right? Like, so I do think that, yeah, I mean, it probably had, I don't know that it did much for me politically. I think I liked Denzel in it at the time. I was a fan of his at that point. You know, but I was young too and all of that. But that's kind of my memory is, you know, I didn't like watch it multiple times or whatever, but I do remember seeing it.
So I'm gonna go next, because then I would love maybe Jab's perspective on a couple things, being slightly older than me. And I'd be curious, well, like, because my consciousness at the time was in a particular way, and I'm gonna say a few things that happened in the period, and but this is like my youth. So my dad watched the movie. My dad did have Donald Woods's book, I remember, on our bookshelf. I don't remember his opinion of it, though, be honest with you. So I don't remember his opinion, but I remember he would have it like centered out and had the Biko kind of, because it has his face on the book, right? And his name. And I remember very vividly on my wall. But I do remember my dad watching the movie and saying to me, he's like, yeah, I mean, Denzel's good, but the fuck, man, he's gone after an hour. Like, what the fuck about Kevin Kline for an hour and a half? I remember him being annoyed. But I think to Jay's point, I think in that time, the representation politics had kind of gotten us, would say, well, if that's all we get at this moment, that's good enough. Like, there's an acknowledgement that it wasn't what was needed, but Denzel gets to be in the film. The struggle against apartheid gets to be highlighted. It's like a net positive. And that was like the general feeling. You got to see Denzel and Cry Freedom. He gets the Academy Award nomination, his first. It's like a big deal. But the thing that I remember, though, is in that like 3 to 4 years, the amount of films and artistic things that had statements about South Africa. So this movie comes out, and then in the same year, Serafina comes out, just the play. But then it goes to Broadway in 88. And if anyone grew up in New York at that time, Serafina was huge. It was like commercials every day, things on the it was like all over. Then you had A Dry White Season come out in 89, which is kind of like just like this movie, which is also in a way, it's strange. Like, they're very similar in a kind of way. And you have all this stuff. You had also Lethal Weapon 2, which we have to do, which features the whole narrative of the Afrikaners, and all that. So it was like in the zeitgeist. And I had this like consciousness that there was this really horrible thing happening. But I have to be honest, other than the fact that white people were being evil, I didn't really understand it. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. So everything was like, there's this morally degraded thing happening in South Africa, right? And no one could really explain it to me. So I remember seeing this movie and not being any clearer of it. I did see Serafina on Broadway. My mother or my father took me to see it probably towards the end of its run. And like it was like a moral thing, but like I didn't have any real specific understanding. I did feel like I knew there was student movement stuff that was happening, because I'm talking like I'm 8 or 9 happening until like maybe I get about 13, 14, and then that's like around 94. Mandela, you get Mandela's released a few years before, and I get a bit more kind of, but it wasn't until I got much older, really honestly, until I got to college, that the radical kind of struggle of this shit became more evident to me, right? And so I just remember it being like a soup, right? And the movie didn't have much things. I do remember when I got to college, I did rewatch the movie, because we watched this, or you watched Mighty Quinn. And I said, damn, Denzel cannot do a damn accent to save his life. He's terrible at these accents. I mean, as bad as this one is, the Mighty Quinn accent is worse, I have to say. His Jamaican accent in Mighty Quinn is like unforgivably bad. It's like you just have to laugh at it. But I remember and this was also, I think, part of when I started like looking at Denzel in a particular way. It started in college. And it's funny, we'll talk about it. He sent a clip about him talking about how much that he's done his political fight or whatever. And that's kind of how I began to kind of see him. And I began to live with this idea that people like Biko, Malcolm, he should never play because he doesn't have a political. I do think he does secretly, but it's not to our level. He's actually just more conservative. Really, I don't have politics. Yes, you do, motherfucker. You just don't want to say that shit, and you want the ability to say I can play Steve Biko or Malcolm X when it's necessary. Anyway, that's like the long way to kind of throw it out there, but I'll throw it to Jab. Early memories and thoughts around the movie.
Yeah, I was really struggling trying to again have something to say today, and my memory is just not reliable. So the only thing I can say for sure is that I did not see the movie in the theater when it first came out. I did read the book. This is one of the rare instances where I read the book before I saw the film, because like Mtume said, my mother had the book. So at some point I read the book, but it was never a discussion. It was never like read the books. I don't remember I don't remember talking about the film, and I don't remember when I first saw the film. I think it was years later, like by myself, maybe in grad school or something like that. There was no, but I was already somewhat prepared because the book is as I remember it, at least, and I couldn't find it, to review it for today, but I was already prepared for how the film goes, because the book is Donald Woods' story, and so I was, but the other weird memory is that kind of, at the time, what I knew about apartheid, I was learning through Stetsasonic and Sun City, not playing, rap music. I was learning through that. And then I have this weird memory of one of the last times that my father was sort of in the news, like before he died, was being arrested at some anti-apartheid rally or event in DC. So I just have this memory of seeing his picture in the Washington Post or some other newspaper and thinking, oh wow, having that, my absent father is the hero in the world, and oh, this thing apartheid is bad. Yeah, it was like it was like all like as a backdrop to my own. My father's out here doing, and this apartheid struggle. So I had no like real. It was just a vague, like in the house, like just a vague, communism, socialism, good, apartheid, bad, Reagan is the devil. It was that kind of just, but no, and that was really it. So like, I don't remember any friends, colleagues eventually, or peers. I don't remember this ever being like a discussion. We had arguments and late night debates around Malcolm X and other movies but this never really became, and maybe it's because of what we were talking about before the show and what we'll talk about today as to why that is. But so yeah, those are just some of the early memories that I had of that time and of the film. I don't remember it having any. I honestly don't even remember whatever news discussion was happening at the time. Like, I just don't remember any of it at all. And it was only going back to prepare today and trying to read some of the reviews of the time and some of the discussion at the time that I was like, wow, because a lot of what I was reading in prep for today, I wasn't aware of at the time. Which is why I often argue that when people say I was alive at this moment is not in and of itself evidence that what the hell is going on. Because technically I was 16, 17 when this film came out. And so I would have been, aware enough to have some thoughts if I had any, but I didn't. So at least that I remember. So yeah. Even in terms of the hip hop stuff, like I don't remember thinking Sun City, Stetsasonic, Poor Righteous Teachers, and Cry Freedom. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, I don't even remember in terms of even going back and like, seeing all the songs about that time period. And the Peter Gabriel song was referenced in a lot of the reviews and articles. And like, again, I never have any association, or when Tribe would eventually do their Biko song reference, there was never any, there was the cry freedom. I don't remember even coming back to that for that. So anyway, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Jab, do you want to do? You had said something about like the preamble that you gave to your daughters. Like, is there anything you want to like before we? Because I know Mtumi will do like some of the making of and stuff, but like I think just for people who don't know that much about Biko and the politics and all of this, like in a general way, do you have any thoughts that you want to give about like the ways that this film distorts that or limits it?
Well, it's I want to read. There's a review that I have that I want to read a passage of to get your thoughts on this, because I wanted to disagree with what the author was saying more than I did, and I hope I'm just wrong. But and the point is that as limited and as jacked up as the film is, in the few minutes you get of Biko, they give you a smattering of a liberal form of what his arguments were. And it, in some way, in that rushed moment, I found it difficult trying to parse out what I would have wanted more in terms of the film's depiction of Biko's politics than what we got. In other words, that is to say, if they had done more to focus on how he evolved those politics, the debates, the arguments, and gave more context to the few lines we get, that would have been great and would have made the film, maybe more valuable. But I did think, anyway, I'll come back to essentially just what I said to them. It was just a few minutes. It was something along the lines that this was part of a broader liberation struggle, that Biko's Black consciousness, I think, has to be understood in context of the armed struggle, of the communist struggle, and we can come back to the way that's depicted in the film. I said something about his point about Black consciousness trying to address the ways race and apartheid set up the social structure. I said a few words about the stratification, the white, the colored, the Black, the Indian. I was trying to do to say, and then something about that Biko's Black consciousness was meant to politicize and radicalize the world majority population, often described as non-white. And really that was it. I didn't and then I came short of telling them, I didn't want to say anything about what I knew would be the case with the film's truncating his life and a focus of Donald Woods. I wanted them to kind of experience that for themselves. So other than saying we're watching this as for critique as opposed to me promoting it, which may have been somewhat of a giveaway, I was like, and that was really it. And then I did tell them, remind them, which they've heard me say repeatedly, that I Mix What I Like is taken from I Write What I Like and inspired by that. Biko's a hero. I was like trying to, just that kind of thing. So like, but that was really it. That was about as much of the more or less the commentary that I wanted to give them, and in organize better what I would have wanted to say here, just in terms of how I think we need to understand where Biko was and what he was meant to represent. And then later on, I think I did stop the film at one point to say something about, after they show, you see the depiction of the Soviet Union flag outside, the spray painted on their house or something like that. I stopped for a second to say something about Hani and I think something like that. I was just like, this is messed up. Like they're doing something here. I don't remember. I hope I was a little more but yeah, that was really it. I just wanted to give them just a reminder, a quick reminder, and that was all I remember.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. And Toomey, you want to do your bit?
Yeah. So I'd be curious. There's a few points that I couldn't They wrote a whole book about the making of the movie that I was not going to read.
I'm sorry, M2May. My bad. I did forget one important. One thing I did want to stress to my daughters who are going back and starting college was that a lot of what Biko was coming out of were the student movements. So that was one thing I did remember adding, that I was like, I did want to put that in there, that this was a lot about student activist engagement and his, you know, so that was, sorry about that. So forgive me, that was sorry.
No. That's necessary. Yeah, like, so I'm going to fill in some of the people. And then there is a little bit of a gap that I was not able to discover. And I'll be curious if you discover between the optioning of the film from the book and how that works. Because every interview that I saw with Attenborough, he didn't really talk about that. He would kind of go into these kind of moral arias. And we can kind of talk about that a little bit. I think, well, we will end up talking about that, as I think it's embedded kind of in the movie. But like has been mentioned, this book is based on Donald Woods's book, which is really about his life. I haven't read it. I don't know, Jab. Would you say that? Would you agree with that assessment in the book?
Which, I'm sorry, which
about Donald Woods' book about Biko? How would you categorize the book? I'm curious.
The only way I remember it was that it's very accurate to what we saw in the film. That it's him, and his story, and then that a lot of it is you know, let me tell you about what I experienced. And yeah, there's this guy Biko, but let me tell you about what I had to deal with, and then what my family had to deal with. And, you know, that was what I remember. All I remember is reading it, like, and honestly, one of the thoughts I had is like, I'm reading it is because I was not a reader. I'm really not a reader. So like, I read out of political necessity. So I remember thinking, I fucking made myself read this shit, and it's not even, you know, like, God damn it. Like it's not even, you know, so yeah, but that's why I couldn't, because of the way our basement is set up, I can't get to a lot of my books, and I couldn't find to review it, and honestly didn't even think to try to just reorder it or go find another copy or whatever. Anyway, but yeah, that was what so that's why I was thinking, like, the movie was very much accurate to the book, not to real life, but to his book. Yeah.
So that makes sense, because a lot of like the rollout of it is, and I think that's probably why it's titled Cry Freedom. I think they kind of knew what this was. It's like maybe if it was in their subconscious, because if you look at the rollout, it's very much about the life of Donald Woods. Like, they made another book. It's called Filming with Attenborough: The Making of Cry Freedom, and the cover is Kevin Kline and the actual Donald Woods standing together. And in the blurb, they're talking about, like, you know, Donald Woods watching the recreation of his life. And I mean, even in the, like, I think it only mentions Steve Biko. Well, it mentions Steve Biko says into the death of Steve Biko, and that Denzel Washington plays. And that's the only way they phrase him in the blurb about the book, right? The making of it, right? So it's like like they're telling on themselves with that. So it's based on this book. The key people, some of the key people to think about is Richard Attenborough. Now, Richard Attenborough, brother of David Attenborough, who might be more famous to some people or known. His whole other, like, similar weird career. Richard was an actor first. Things like The Great Escape, many movies people have seen Richard Attenborough in. I don't think they quite maybe even remember. That's like kind of like his start. He then goes into directing a little bit later, and I think like in the 70s he starts directing, right? His most famous film is another film about a big figure, Gandhi. He was the director of Gandhi in '82, which he won the Academy Award for Best Director, a movie that many people were forced to watch in schools. like myself. I couldn't stand that shit, and we will not be doing that for Imperial. Oh, or maybe I don't know. I don't want to do Gandhi for the Imperial 80s, even though I feel like we have to. It sucks.
No, I think we should. I think we should.
Oh man, damn!
I think we need. I think I was forced to watch it, and I think we have to sit through all 7 hours of Benjamin Kingsley.
Sorry.
And when I came home from school that day, all my mother said is, "Why was he always in sleeping around all them young girls?" That's
exactly. Exactly. So
all the girls.
So Attenborough, he directs that. You know, he is part of British royalty, and he becomes a sir, goes into which is knighthood, right? And then he becomes a lord. I mean, like, I'll even read you the full. He is the Right Honorable, the Lord Attenborough. And he even gets like a manor kind of area, like the Lord of Attenborough or some shit. Like, it's like the whole British thing is absolutely absurd. You want to say something, Jay?
He also plays the old dude in Jurassic Park. He plays the doctor. He's the he's the dude with the
original science, right?
Yeah. What is it? A mosquito and amber. He's that guy.
Yeah.
He's that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, 100%. Yeah, and he also did the really bad Charlie Chaplin movie with Richard Dreyfuss. Oh, no, Richard Dreyfuss. What's his name? Iron Man. Richard Dreyfuss. Robert Downey Jr. With him starring.
Wow. Right.
Yeah, he did the Chaplin film, which is like doesn't really get into Charlie Chaplin and how and his very complicated ass. Negatively complicated, I will say. So like Attenborough, how he got directly involved, I don't know if either of you saw any of that. I couldn't find it. And it's very opaque. And I tried to find, if anyone finds it, please. But he does speak about the film, and we'll talk about it, I think, more as we get into the film. He did see this as like a big like charge to do as a kind of moral quest as a British person, because of Britain's support, that he felt that he needed to kind of do a kind of intervention into what he, and I'm using his quotes of the evilness that was happening down there and the humanitarian crisis. This was kind of like his main kind of thrust into it. There's some other parts of it that to me really show off the ugliness of his paternalism, his liberalism, that we'll get into. It's really, you can really see it through the approach to the film. But there's things he said that also show that as well. Jay, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just think it's important just to situate a little bit like the British element of this, because I do think, I mean, we'll talk about it as it goes into the movie, but it's important to understand that like Donald Woods is a descendant from British settlers that arrived in South Africa in like 1820, right? But the people that are the evil people in this film are Afrikaners, right? Which are predominantly Dutch, some French, etc., like kind of mixed, that arrived much early in like the 1600s, right? And so there's this whole kind of thing within the film of like, we have to save these poor white Brits. They're also being oppressed by this evil Afrikaner government, kind of thing that goes throughout it. But I think that's one of the interesting things about the sort of Donald Woods as the central focus. There are things that he does in this film that I see and I'm like, wow, that's heroic that he actually did that. I mean, I get he's probably telling the story, so like, you don't know, like, but whatever. Like, I there's the moments in it where you're like, would you be willing to stand up and do X, Y, Z or whatever?
That's a good point. Sorry, my bad.
Ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry.
No, go ahead, man.
Go ahead. One of the in my preamble for the girls, and at one point I did talk over the film briefly because they mentioned the Boers. There's like a brief reference to the Boer War or something like that, and or at some point I mentioned to them like they were like this point that Woods is a descendant of the Brits who, from their they lost to the Dutch, and that's why they have the Afrikaners. And it was like that's why so we did talk a little bit about that. That's right. And I think, but I didn't emphasize that enough in terms of how we should understand the film. So I think you're making a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just think it's also important to the connection to Attenborough as well as a British filmmaker, right? So it is a part, like there is a whole break in the ties in like 67-ish between the UK and South Africa entirely. They do, of course, still, there are these financial relationships and all of that continue with both the US and the UK and so on, and support and all of that sort of stuff. And then there's Israel's relationship to supporting it as well. But I also think it's just kind of those dynamics are it's really a movie kind of about interwhite stuff as much as it is about a kind of about the black struggle, which is really dealt with almost ancillary in the film. So yeah,
I think it's completely about interwhite struggle. I mean, struggle or conflict or a kind of call for the next stage of enlightenment. Maybe it's like we're on this quest towards like the higher consciousness here in the West. And our last stage is this kind of evil project that is happening down there in Africa. So if we can alleviate that, stop being so bad to the blacks, we can now graduate to a better form of liberal democracy, right? Yeah, the production company that did it was a British production company. But they had a distribution with Universal in the US. It sounds like it was probably conceived within that, but within that company, but then US money made it, which kind of would make sense, I think, in the time with the slate of things that were happening in Hollywood. Maybe this kick started it off. You would have this, like I said, you have Dry White Season 2 years later. You would have Lethal Weapon 2. There's a kind of discussion, I think, of what maybe I'm sure someone has done writing on this, and I'd be fun to know. It'd be fun to know if someone thought about it. It sounds like there was a kind of political position through Hollywood that they felt that this was necessary to kind of mobilize on, and let's do it, right? And let's sign on to it. Go ahead, Jay.
One other movie is Power of One, which
yes,
Stephen Dorff and Morgan Freeman, which is like very, very similar in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Right. That's I forgot about that one. So yeah, you have these like things that are coming. So the two leads, Kevin Kline and Denzel Washington. So Kline, by that point, Kline's he's from like Missouri-ish area. I know more about him than I would like to, be honest with you. That's just because of stuff in acting school and shit. And he, it's kind of like it's funny. I think his dad had like a classical music store. It's like how he grew up. It's like, so he kind of comes from this like refined, like upper middle class kind of thing. He goes to the Juilliard School. I believe he was part of the first class of the Juilliard School. Because one of my old teachers was in class with him, which was led then by a guy named John Houseman. John Houseman is the founder of the Juilliard School. Houseman, who do you remember Houseman from? He's the guy in Scrooge who's reading the Scrooge story, right? He's like, yes, and people wouldn't know who he is. If you like Google John Houseman, you'll see he's a big like theater. And like he even took them and they made like a theater group after it. He was kind of known as like the person who would preserve kind of American theater, but on a classical level, closer to the Brits and all that type of shit. Blah 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 is all trash. I've always had major issues with that shit. It's garbage. So Kline, around I think Sophie's Choice is like the big movie for him that kind of like lifts him, right? And he starts to do that. And there was definitely this like move with Kevin Kline, who I've never thought is that great of an actor. I'm gonna
and
be
the Big Chill too, right?
The Big Chill. Those are the two. Is yes, Sophie's Choice and the Big Chill. To make Kevin Kline the refined American actor. Like, we would have such and such kind of star, but who would be our Olivier, really? And there was a long kind of push to make Kevin Kline Olivier, which also just shows the weird concepts around Laurence Olivier and his shit, and then also a kind of overestimation of how good Kevin Kline was as an actor. But I always do find his character in Soap Dish kind of like more like who Kevin Kline is. He's like the soap opera star who wants to go out and make the one-man Hamlet. Make the one-man Hamlet. I don't know if you've seen Soap Dish, Jay.
Hell yeah.
Or people have seen Soap Dish. That's the real Kevin Kline. Yeah, he plays this soap actor who gets like shitted on because of like he had like a secret kid and he gets fired from it, and Sally Field fires him. But he gets to come back like much later after like being a struggling actor, and the one thing he wants to do is his one-man Hamlet.
I feel like I have seen that movie, but it's been so long.
It's actually funny.
It's good. I actually like it.
Yeah, it's actually pretty funny. I mean, there's some interesting things for the time, especially around trans stuff. At the very end, it's very controversial. It's like not good. That's not good, but like it is funny. Pleasant. Yeah, Fish Called Wanda. People keep bringing that as a couple of years later. I think he's decent at that, but like, yeah, I'm not a. Anyway, I want to get.
That's his
best supporting actor
or win, yeah.
And people thought by the 90s Kevin Kline was going to be huge, but they never really. People didn't have the desire for an American Olivier. Like no one really gave a fuck. That's really the truth of it. Yeah, go ahead.
We're a simpler people than that. We don't need Olivier.
We don't need that shit.
Yes, Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. Like
I was gonna say, Tom Selleck and Magnum PI. They don't need Kevin Kline. That's not what they do. They don't want that shit. They want Mustache Man. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the other one is Denzel. And Denzel by this point, I mean, he had a couple of like these like more rinky-dink movies. Before this one comes out, like what's that one movie he did that I always remember? There's a couple of his like really early films that are like pretty like I think people forget like some of the early Denzel films, but he had a Soldier Story before this.
I was gonna ask, yeah. Are you all gonna do that one, by the way?
We have to, yes.
I hope so. Yeah.
We have to. Because Fuller's an interesting person in general.
Yeah.
Power is another one we can maybe even do, but he was doing films. This was the film because he got his first Academy Award nomination that really kind of catapults him into he's going to be the next. We're like the next Sidney Poitier kind of arguments start happening, right? He is going to be the guy that's going to launch everything and like lift everything up. And it was definitely really focused around him and the mark. It's interesting because like the way it kind of worked was it's a movie about Donald Woods through Steve Biko. But then when they make the movie, Denzel has the character that everybody wants to see. So they do kind of promote him a little bit more because people forget that Kevin Kline is in this movie. I don't think people really remember that Kevin Kline movie, Cry Freedom. Like no one gives a fuck. The Denzel movie, Cry Freedom. Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. So that becomes the thing. The film was shot largely in Zimbabwe. Almost completely, outside of a couple of like little things here and there, almost completely shot there. And there's lots of like stories that I'm not gonna discount that they're not true. They probably were about the South African, the Africana government trying to come in there and like do actual terrorism to the set and fuck up shit and go after people. I wouldn't doubt that, but there's a way that like when you hear Attenborough talk about it, you discover the liberal adventurism that is this movie. It's like he goes, well, yeah, she asked a woman asked him, she goes, was this harder than Gandhi? He goes, well, yes, of course it was. It was harder than Gandhi because we had to go in there and fight and have the pressure of the people trying to possibly, take us out and end this important story. And it just embedded it in the movie. And I'm like, oh my God, y'all be going at fucking like Weathers for adventurism. This is the real white adventurism right here. This is that adventurism.
One of the reviews that I did read Attenborough's in his interview where he was talking about explicitly doing this for political reasons, which is what I thought was interesting in comparison to what a lot of popular directors would say about their films today. They always seem to want to deny it. He at least was admitting, I'm doing this for political purposes. It's necessary. But it was this whole thing like, I'm going to war with my film camera for the freedom of African people. And it was like, son, slow down.
It's like, slow the fuck down. Another thing he said in an interview that I found really interesting and telling, and she said another thing that was difficult is, I had to, deal with the people who really loved Biko and their requests. But then also this force coming from the Afrikaners trying to destroy the film. So he speaks about it like they're two forces that are like trying to like keep him from this like neutral truth. And I was like, of course, this white woman who was interviewing him was not going to dig into that. But I was like, oh, yeah, I want to hear more about these forces.
Would you say that he was describing these forces as blades and scissors? I don't know. Just speculate. I don't know.
Exactly. I think you could use that one, blades and scissors. But yeah, he kind of talks about it in that way. And then Denzel, when he speaks about it, that what is his line? I blended in because I'm African. So they couldn't find me. And that's how he kind of speaks about the movie. I found very little Kevin Kline on the movie. I think I have this image that Kevin Kline is disappointed that Denzel got more love for the movie than he did.
Well, I saw one of the videos I watched that did a review on it, made the point that, and they held up the DVD and they showed that on the DVD spine, you see Kline's face. So apparently there was an attempt to market him as the centerpiece of the film, and it probably turned pretty quickly because the film isn't great. Biko is a much more compelling figure anyway, and people would have more associated the story with him. And Denzel, for all the flaw, I don't know, I thought he did a competent job in his performance. So maybe Kline would have been encouraged, and
I mean, we could talk about it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think he definitely Denzel has a thing that he has more star energy on the screen. Kevin Kline doesn't have star energy. Kevin Kline's really a guy who's just been a character actor. And I don't get it. Like, people have weird shit in Hollywood that they think people can do certain things. I can get into my issues with Denzel's performance a little bit, because what I did actually do was I watched half of the movie, and then I watched and listened to some Steve Biko interviews, because I wanted to hear the accent technically, but also like energetically. And and I'm gonna say why. I could say why when we get into the film a little bit, what he totally misses.
I agree with the chat. Your accent is just now was better than Denzel's. Biko, your British accent is better than Denzel's. Bantu. Yeah. I was thinking throughout the film, man, you should have just Kevin Costner'd this, man. You should have just. I don't do accents, bro. I'm too big to do accents.
By like X-Men 3, when she just dropped Storm's African accent. She was like, I ain't doing that shit no more.
I'm too. Maybe he was too young in his career. Denzel today would have been Biko as if he was in Brooklyn again or whatever. He doesn't sound like
Well, where's Denzel from? He's from like Mount Vernon or something like that, right?
Wherever he's from, yeah.
Give him like a Vernonville accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I don't know if there's anything we can get into the movie probably to talk about. I don't know if there's any other making things. It was interesting because it was for the most part well received, but there were critics even in the liberal end, even people like Janet Maslin, who I can't stand, who said, "What is this movie, y'all? Like, let's this is kind of BS." Like, she was kind of like,
But
go ahead.
But I was bothered to find out, and I know, and again, making other parallels to some other things happening today, I was actually bothered to see how much support the film seemed to have gotten from the Black leadership of the day. So Winnie Mandela supported the film. I looked for it. Chris Hani never was associated with a comment. So there's no, but apparently the ANC was supporting it. There was a lot of that whole thing of this is going to help the cause, even if it isn't a perfect representation of Biko, and it was like it's going to advance the anti-apartheid struggle. And then they, to your point about the sabotage, it was argued apparently that after initially South Africa had agreed to let the film be run in the country, they quickly censored it, and then said there was some threats of violence and terrorist attacks that some reports seem to say was the regime itself. But yeah, that part I had hoped to find more of at that time Black South African criticism of the film, and I didn't at least find any that I can point to.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know, and if anybody who watches this has any info on this, I'd be curious, because like the only things I can make guesses around mass media projects, and maybe a certain kind of position for them politically. I'm more asking. I'm actually curious. Maybe a kind of need saying, well, this will have a more of a net positive, as a kind of like was it visibility tool.
That's what I kept finding. That seemed to be the sentiment at the time.
Yeah, and I think we'll get into it, but I think it's a film that's designed to be for white liberals, right? Like it's a direct intended audience internationally, right? And to convince them of the abhorrence of the apartheid system, basically, And so I think that's, and and in the family that I grew up in, I mean, I think that I don't know that my father would have needed this film to, I don't think so, right? Like, but I do think he understood it in that way as well, right? As this is a film basically for white people, and I think there's a lot of questions about all of that, and I think the whole awareness raising and the efficacy of these things. It's also interesting though that like, we haven't seen, at least on mainstream level, these types of movies made about Palestine, right? Like there are the award-winning, but they're still fairly fringe and not like rolling out as like trying to be a Hollywood blockbuster. I'm not saying that we want that, right? But it does show the difference in what Hollywood's appetite is for different things at different times, because clearly this is a genre of movie that they were making and trying to promote. And it did, like, just quickly to go through a couple of things, like it won Political Film Society USA has a award for like the human rights film of the year. It won that. It did get the, Denzel got the outstanding actor in a motion picture from the NAACP Image Awards, right? And they also nominated Attenborough and Juanita Waterman. And then, it was nominated for Best Picture in the Golden Globes. And then there's like a bunch of other individual actor nominations and so on in different awards. So it was, well, I just say that to say like Hollywood was very, and the award system was very on board with this kind of movie, even though I don't think it's very good at all, right? Which I think also says something.
Yeah, and I mean, I've said it because I've read it recently. Parenti talks about this a lot in Inventing Reality, about this need, especially in the 80s, to have these humanitarian pieces. So you think about this as like maybe the humanitarian film about the oppressed people of Black people. Have something like Project X with Matthew Broderick, the one about the monkeys and like the nuclear radiation. right? So these kinds of like humanitarian films to show that liberal democracy has at the very least a humanitarian critique, right? And that it is flexible enough, right? Now, is there any real investigation to U.S. involvement in any of these things, their voting record? And even if there is, they're going to be very, 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 very careful to kind of isolate to bad individuals or a bad project that maybe the president doesn't know about, right? It's being kept from. Why didn't I know about this? Oh my God, right?
The rogue agency did something that I didn't know. How dare they?
The deep state, right? The deep state, right, is doing some shit. So I do think that's also a part of it to kind of add to what you're saying, Jane. I think this fits into that. And I think to kind of, maybe quell what was a growing movement amongst people's consciousness within the U.S. around, because you're getting like boycott and divestment, charges coming from people.
Again, I think that the very fact that, so to me, I thought it was very telling that Attenborough would say publicly, I want to make a political film. I have an agenda here. I'm trying to do something. And then at the same time, pick this Donald Woods book to make the film, because it does what I think you're saying there, even unconsciously. It puts a very definitive limit on what the analysis and the political outcomes will be, and likely the impact on the intended audience, who are probably people meant to be to the right of Jared, both of our parents, who may not be rabid racists, but just need that little bit more of, oh wait, these are human beings. They aren't all animals. They deserve at least to let the better whites, the British, have more power. Get the Afrikaners off, so I don't know, something like that.
The real lords.
The real lords. Exactly. You don't want to mess with them Dutch. You could have the original.
The original.
Yeah. So yeah, but I thought absolutely. Why? First of all, you have. I don't think they were compiled into I Write What I Like yet, but you still have the works of Biko. You still have a community that remembers him. You still have an ongoing struggle. You still, I mean, I was still like, wait, Winnie is still alive. Hani was still alive. I don't know enough when the white communists, I don't know enough about, Slovo and them, where all of them were, but there were people like right out of that struggle that, because again, Biko is killed only 10 years before this film comes out. So you have a world of people that they could have tapped into but of course that doesn't, so no, get Donald Woods's book. It's like, it's just bizarre.
So I actually want to go, if it's okay, right into the movie, because the thing that struck me with how the movie started really situates what you were just talking about, Chad. So the movie starts with these like opening credits, right? And they're in like a type, like they're typing that you would see on like a typewriter. You even hear the tick, right? And they do this technique where they use that as like to open up the credits, and you get these images, and the shots are meant to be distant. So we would call it limited space, where you're peeking through something. So there's always an obstruction to give you the vision that you are an outsider, or you're seeing something that you're not supposed to see. So what you seeing African folk living in impoverished, situations, right? Or just living their life, right? And then it does this other thing where it would go to black and white, and you get like a telephoto. And people don't know about telephoto. Telephotos are long lenses that you get from a distance to be unseen. So a lot of times when you see those big long lenses, they're called a telephoto lens. So I could be like 100 yards and get something that looks like right up on someone's face. So they're doing exactly what voyeur is. It's a voyeurism. So you're basically peeking in. But then what happens? Violence. Like high violence. And this whole sequence, I think, lasts for about, I'm looking at it right now, about 7 minutes of the movie. You get this thing that kind of goes there, and it goes into hyper just violence of people coming in with clubs and, you know, destroying homes and brutalizing people, Black people. So you get this distancing. And I was like, oh, this movie, it's totally about like the people who are separate from it, really white people, look at what's happening, right? You're going to get a peek. It's like an expose. You're going to get a peek into the real evils of the world. And really by the end of this movie, you're going to be prompted to, like, you know, to step into it. I'm going to expose to you what's really happening. And it's just, it's the same kind of like real liberal media humanitarian bullshit. Because I watched it and I was like, this is disgusting, this opening. I was disgusted. I was like, oh, I didn't remember this part at all. I was like, oh my fucking God. Because as a Black person, first of all, I mean, you watch it, I'm like, yo, move these obstructions out the way. Stop this bullshit. Like, why do you have me peeking like a peeping Tom? Right? It was really nasty. But that's how I knew this movie was situated for white people. And it's a conversation amongst white people who will have the conversation about how liberal democracy is functioning and the problems with it. So he's whatever his whenever he goes to his Lord banquets, these are the arguments that he's having, and he's rich enough to basically take a crew into Zimbabwe and make a a cinematic engagement about it.
I just want to say one thing quick. I agree with all of what you just said. There's one thing to add that I think comes through this movie in multiple waves, is that there's, especially in this idea of the defense of liberal values and liberal democracy, which this film is all about, there's a real resonance if you watch this film versus if you watch anti-communist films, like films about communist countries. The way that it frames the police and surveillance state, the way that it frames the restriction of movement, the restriction of assembly, these basic democratic freedoms, right? Liberal freedoms, liberal values, right? And all this is scare quotes, but this is like the way that they think about it. That, you know, even at the end, to jump to the end, spoiler, of when, you know, they're going to fly out of the country, and the idea that, oh, well, you're supposed to have to land within South Africa and be checked before you can actually leave, even though they're not flying from South Africa, but they're flying over it, right? And I'm not saying that any of that was not true within apartheid South Africa, right? Or that it's not something that should be opposed, but it situates in the same way where then this critique and this form of politics is very portable to other, you know, regimes or societies that people want to say deny, you know, freedoms and this and that, right? So
yeah,
anyway,
I mean, we'll get to the border crossing when they have to, when they're there. I mean, I was totally getting West and East Germany with that as well.
100%. Yeah, or like Nazi Germany. Yeah, totally.
Nazi,
yes, the West East
yeah,
Germany,
or Nazi
like,
too.
border,
Yeah.
I
was getting definitely, especially when he pulls the gun on the two, I guess they're police officers, a fascism call. They're trying to, like, South Africa is the last, like, I guess maybe the last refuge for the degraded ends of Western Europe, right? And, you know, we must clean this up.
But we do. What about the fact that we saw Biko hit the cop?
So like, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
When I saw it again the other day, my first reaction, I had two. One was, my first thought was, this is for people like me, to get me to put my defenses down. And then I was like, is this another Mr. Tibbs? Is this like the African Mr. Tibbs moment? Like, is this meant to be, because you made, I wouldn't have done it. You ended up mentioning 48 earlier, but that was because I was like, I was consciously resisting what I thought was the intent. Because initially you see him hit the cop, you're like, hell yeah. Like, let's go. Like, you see, it's like, but then I'm like, wait a minute.
But it's that he follows it for me with this, like, I just want to be treated like you want to be treated kind of thing, right? So it then becomes this like liberal golden rule of like, everybody should be nice to each other. Like,
yeah, and
I'm not violent. It's just that I just, I'm not supporting politicized, organized armed struggle. I'm just hitting you back one time because you hit me, and then to your point, yeah, that's right.
And I think you have to add before that the effort to liberalize Biko in the film. Because what do they focus on? He plays soccer, family. He's very conversational. He's very polite.
You said, right? You have the film up on in the background. Mm-hmm. One of the articles I read was trying to point out that that the film tries to, in a way, while they're claiming to humanize him, this is my words now, borrowing from this article, that they end up dehumanizing him by making him something other than, they make as a figure, as a symbol, more than a man. And that and I didn't remember this, but the film, according to this review, was saying we're introduced to Biko initially through silhouette and with some like lighting in the background, like he's some.
Yep.
And so they're trying to make that point, like, so it's not just liberalizing him, it's like almost deifying him as something separate from some sort of struggle, separate from the rest of these Negroes, separate from, all of that stuff. I thought that was deep. I definitely didn't catch that even on the rewatch.
Yeah, he has a technique where, kind of like how you see me right now, like this side of my, because of the light's coming from here, it's a bit more severe. And Denzel, I mean, he probably got a natural tan while he was out there, but he's darker in the film. There's a way they did the makeup to kind of really attach, like, I guess, a certain kind of light. So you get like half of his face. And I do think, because he's like they want to distance him, but then as he comes into the light, figuratively, we learn about his humanity. But I think to the point where I would agree with that is, like, maybe I would like say a slightly different is, he can only be human by being angelic. It's the kind of admittance of like the white enlightenment liberal. If you think about aesthetics, right? The blacks who can get into liberal democracy have like this special quality that make them, it's their special quality that make them equals, not their basic humanity. Like if Steve Biko was just a cat on the block playing soccer saying yo yo yo, he wouldn't.
By the way, that was something I also read, that one of the critiques was that Biko was, while he was relatively quote unquote well educated, that he spoke like the regular brothers, and that the film through Denzel has him in a very Attenborough-esque, Britishized, that one of the reviews was like, no, that's not, like, they got him wrong on that regard. They got Biko wrong on that. And I thought that was deep too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just to add to that, like, that's my critique of Denzel's performance. So he does I'm not going to try to do his accent, because it's the crazy thing about his accent is he has like 3. He has one where he's kind of like Denzel with like a little bit of a twitch, right? And it's kind of like his normal voice. Then he has times that he goes into his nose heavily, and I'm like, what the fuck? He's like in this part of his vocal register, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then he has moments where he gets really like, he feels like he's doing Shakespeare. And I was like, did Steve Biko talk like this? I was like, wait a minute, no. I literally stopped the movie, went to my computer, and I was like, I gotta listen to some I was like, and so like an example, kind of honestly, is the actor Zakes Moke, who's in the film. He plays the father, who is from South Africa,
and also in A Dry White Season.
Yes, and you listen to the way he speaks, right? Who is and he's an actor. Like he was Master Harold in The Boys. He was in the Ethel Fugard plays. That's kind of how he got his thing as an actor in South Africa. But like this cat, like you could tell how there is like a kind of refinement, but like you just speaking like you with the people. And that's when you hear Steve Biko talk. And Denzel can't do it. He can't really do it even with the American shit. Like even when he's playing Trading Day, you know, it's like it's so extra. And I'm like, bro, chill, right? Like, but it's the Attenborough thing that even though he's of the people, he's above the people.
But speaking of the act, oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All I wanted to do was shout out at some point, Josette Simon is her name. And no disrespect, but that was the maybe the only bright spot for me in the film was her. And I do know that the film, I don't know if they were doing to what extent this was conscious, but I thought they were trying to depict because Biko was apparently known for some of his dalliances. And so you see, and I kind of feel like you see a little bit of the tension between his wife and Josette's character, who's his assistant, colleague, peer, comrade, whatever. And I thought they were trying to suggest that there was this thing happening. But I
got that vibe.
Yeah. I just wanted to shout her out. I thought she was a definite bright spot in the film. But
I read that that's one of the big differences between the book and the movie is that Donald Woods in real life was really obsessed with Biko's sexuality, actually, like, and spent like a lot, like, to a really kind of strange degree. And they toned it down a bit in this one, but you do see there's the scene where they go to like the kind of like speakeasy type place or whatever, and they're not, you know, there's that discussion and he's dancing with, you know, and he's like she loves him and this kind of thing, you know, and they're kind of, you know, but it's not played up within the film. I guess I don't know where you want to jump. Well, what do we want to do?
We could jump around. I mean, we could jump around, I guess, through. That's what we're kind of doing.
So I think, I mean, yeah. So that doctor, right, that you were just referencing, Rempele is the name of the character, right? And she makes sure to like over pronounce it every time. But you get her next, right? And then you get kind of like this introduction. She's reading the news or whatever. She's hearing about the crackdown that happened the night before in the Black Township illegal settlement, right? This is the kind of thing is like there's not like housing or, you know, places for Black people. It's still an issue to this day. Like the whole what is their name? Like the shack dwellers movement in South Africa, right, is still kind of often based in these like so-called illegal settlements and so on and so forth. Basically like a homeless encampment in some camps, but like on a massive scale, just because there's just not the provision of housing for people, even still. But that's what gets broken up in the beginning. And so she's hearing the news story of that. And it eventually, like, there's some stuff of showing her in the clinic. And I think this is just supposed to show, like, you know, whatever, like, oh, there are civilized Black folks here doing, like, you know, like, it really gives you that vibe, right, of this comparison between the two juxtaposition from the beginning.
Right. And that's what one thing, I mean, it is, if you give them liberal education, they can be civilized to Westernization.
Totally. Yeah, and they kind of say that because the next sort of scene that I remember is her going to Kevin Kline's character. He's written some like hit piece on Biko, and you know, she's confronting him on it, and you know, he's like, "Oh, you talk so well." I don't remember exactly what he says, but it's something like that. You know, it's like, "Where did you get your education?" and she talks about how she's a product of his liberal values or something like that, and she went to some, you know, private school or something along those lines, and she's a doctor, and she's then challenging him that, like, basically, you don't know Biko. And he starts with the whole, very similar to what you get in the West about Malcolm X, and this was still very much the case in the 80s. Like, I feel like we've moved into this different version now, but maybe you want to say about this, about a little bit about this, Jared, but like, we've gone from the Malcolm X was a black supremacist and a hate monger, which was still very much how he was viewed in the 80s, to now he's Obama. Like, you know, like just, but in this period,
I
the
think
way
that's a
that
great parallel. Yeah.
yeah, in the period of this film, the way they're describing Biko, or the way Kevin Kline's character Woods is describing Biko, is that, right? He's like, oh, well, you know, I'm against white supremacy, but he's a black supremacist, and I'm not with that. And, you know, his ideas are just as, you know, extremist as the white supremacist people in African society, or in South African society. And she's basically like, you don't know him. Like, go and meet him, talk to him. And again, like, this is the piece about this movie that I think is really doing some crazy work in this film, is this idea that Biko was the leader that you could talk to, right? They need a leader that can engage in this liberal dialogue and, you know, can get beyond. And so the fact that he's willing to talk to white people is really what's emphasized in this film. It's not about his politics as much as they think he might potentially be willing to compromise and lead people into some sort of peaceful resolution that require, you know, so in
And
some
this is
ways
said
it
explicitly.
prefigures, yeah, in some ways it prefigures the way that, you know, we might think the Mandela thing kind of ends up going to some extent, you know. Yeah.
Oh, I thought about that. So as I was watching it, so first of all, I think you're making a really important point, and that I had not, at least not with that sort of clarity, thought about that parallel between my hatred of both of these movies, Denzel being in them, and the thing being done to Malcolm that you're describing, somewhat taking place in this film. Because yeah, he's the black supremacist, the black racist at first, and then once Donald can go and see him and see and hear, and then you hear the speeches that I don't know to what extent they're accurate, and I know in terms of but we get versions of Biko's speeches that emphasize, you know, we just want equal rights, and we just want peace, and we don't want, you know, we don't get I don't think we get enough of the critique of the society that led to a black consciousness movement in the first place. And then we also don't get, other than some depicted, and this is where I thought of the film Black Panther and the pictures in the background of Huey. You see Mandela depicted a little bit in the background here or there, but there's really no discussion of Mandela. There's certainly no discussion of Hani. There's no discussion of any, I don't like, there's no, like, it's like if Biko isn't involved, like black people are out here being oppressed, and it's just Biko that's in struggle against it. And yet, to your point, he is the version of all the struggles we don't see depicted or hear discussions of that we want to engage, because he's the one we might be able to talk to. And it's like, but we don't see any, like, at least I don't remember. We don't see any or reference any other versions of struggle. I don't even think we hear, we don't hear even references to Zulus or to any other group. Do we even hear, like, we don't hear references to Sasso and Swapo and to all these other, like, they're not even mentioned, which I thought was, yeah. Anyway.
Well, I'll say quickly. That's what I meant when I think I said this before we got on. If you were to watch this movie and know nothing about that, it would be a confusing film. The only thing that you could kind of graph out is that there is a group of really shitty white people. There's a white guy who kind of had to learn past his, not all the way shitty, but kind of like close to shitty ways. And through him, his wife and a couple of other whites and his kids could kind of like become unshitty as well. And that the closer you bring the black folks and the unshitty whites together to like a nexus, will have a good life. The movie does not have any kind of political grasp. But then what's weird is they'll take lines and parts, and I'm going, well, what does that mean? I don't understand what this means. They'll say black consciousness, or they'll throw a hammer and sickle on a wall, right? Or they'll have this, and or they'll go into another nation, and I don't understand. I mean, I know, but like, if you're watching this with no kind of political understanding, you're going to lean back to the humanitarianism and just kind of just sit with that.
I think another important thing is that Biko is dead, right? And so he's I mean, really now, but he's dead at the time that they're making the movie, right? By 10 years. And so they're saying that this is the type of person that we need, but they're also curating the version of the type of person that they need. And it's someone that's willing to engage in dialogue and talk to us, right? Like it's somebody who's willing to come to this negotiating table, between the sword and the neck, right? And, parse these things out, and not engage in the black terrorism, right? Which is what they talk about. And that is the only reference that I remember that you get to Mandela is in the courtroom when they ask Biko who are the other black leaders. He mentions Mandela. He mentions a couple other folks. I think I have it, like we can pull it up later. But they say, well, these men are all like terrorists, basically. And I'll go back. He has some line to sort of rebut that, but it's not. There's not a discussion at all really of the armed struggle component, and other than these references to terrorism, really. Like that's it.
I have to be honest. I do intend to do this. What this experience reminded me of is that I'm not clear enough on the history, and I don't know enough about the overlap between Biko and these other movements. I don't know enough about, yeah, and I don't remember enough about Biko's own. I did try to go back and read a little bit of I Write What I Like and find some of those clips, but I just need to do more to parse out more with more clarity where Biko was vis-a-vis armed struggle, socialism, communism, internationalist struggle, Black Power. I do know, obviously I remember, he was influenced by Malcolm X, Frantz Fanon. He was engaging all of that work. He was moved, pun intended, by the Black Power struggle here in the United States. All of that is true, and we don't get almost any of that in the film. But still, there was a lot of, I was just reminded of a lot of gaps in my knowledge about some of these details, and I would like to close them because, yeah.
Just a couple of quick things on it, and this is just like cursory searching, and I haven't delved into it that deeply. Also, but he starts out with the National Union of South African Students, which is just like it sounds, basically, and leaves that because it's too white dominated. So like his initial 66 to 68, he's in a multiracial student organization, basically. In 68, he co-founds SASO, right, which is the South African Students Organization, which is a lot of what he's kind of, known for. And again, it's a big tent. Their ideology per their political manifesto or policy manifesto in 71 was, it's a Black student organization working for the liberation of the Black man, first from the psychological oppression by themselves through inferiority complex, and secondly from physical oppression accruing out of living in a white racist society. So again, like the Fanon, black skin, white mask influence, I think, is very very heavy. And then co-founds in 72 the BPC. Let's see what that is. Black People's Convention, which was a national coordinating body for the Black consciousness movement. And it says it was active in resistance to apartheid. I'm not sure whether that resistance, I'm not sure the degree to which it would have constituted actual armed struggle or anything like that. But many of the people afterwards became active in the Azanian People's Organization, or AZAPO. But then he's killed by 77, right? So and he's banned by 73, right? So his period even of all of this is relatively brief of his own political activism. And that's the other thing, is like you're leaving out this history between 77 and where they are now, with the only thing shown at the end is that the massacre, Soweto massacre, right, is shown at the end, which is just horrendous. But yeah, so there's a lot that's just, and none of it is dealt with. You don't see any discussion of any of the different political currents. There's not any real discussion between like some of the more nationalist oriented elements versus, communists or socialists, or the various groupings and differences is not discussed at all.
I mean, yeah, and that's where I think you really get into what the film's project is. The film's project is about the awakening of Donald Woods, right? It's like, and I put those in quotations also, his awakening. I don't think he had any, whatever. Quote quotations. So
well, he went on after he escaped South Africa, right, and led this vanguard career of revolutionary activity, right? He was an internationalist leader of the struggle after he escaped South Africa and wrote this book, right?
And his autobiography too,
Yeah, this was his awakening, and that's why he's on my wall downstairs next to Luigi.
Exactly. But it's his awakening. So for it to be a political discussion about Biko's development, you can't do that. Like, he has to be fixed. If anything, the only development you get to see of Biko is him letting in a white. And I think that's like the really big. I think both of you mentioned about this idea that he's someone that we could talk to. You see a kind of like, because when you first see him, they kind of make it like he's suspicious, but like, cautious. And then but he like when they're at the bar scene, you see like Woods's like regressive concepts, his like bad questionings of their tactics and their beliefs. And there's like these moments where Biko and his friends could be like, man, get your fucking ass out of here, white man. But they don't. They let him stay, and they take the task of like elevating him. And Woods is to be commended because he accepts the invitation into being changed. I mean, this gets to me, it gets like the negative of like religious awakening, right? Like Woods is able to be converted to a higher level of humanity by these like great people. And this is where everything becomes magical, right? And so to go into Biko's politics as a process, kind of what you're talking about, they can't do that. They can't have him in a process of figuring out and really highlight that when, like you were saying, Jay, when he was assassinated, he was in the middle of a process. So he wasn't a finished thing. He has to be finished in this movie. He has to be finished.
This was something that I was... No,
the only other thing that I add is like just reading it, I was just looking up like, was he involved in the armed struggle and so on, and there's no he was not directly involved in that, right? And what gets said is like that the Black consciousness movement, especially after he's killed, many of the people that were involved in that movement go on to take up armed struggle and to join some of those movements. But one of the things that he was involved with was efforts to unify different anti-apartheid factions, which is also not, they don't deal with that at all. And that was one of the things that he was really doing in the years right leading up to his death, right? So it would have been right at the time that this movie is placed. And I think the fact that they omit that is really important, because then you would be at least introduced, even if they just did it as like a meeting or something like that, you would be at least introduced of, oh, there are these other parties and organizations and groups who have various politics and differences of opinion on how this should be done. And it's not just like this one singular figure around this moral issue, basically.
So one of the articles or reviews that I read made the point that, not said in this way, but was making the point that Biko was an inspiration to the youth that, for instance, took part in that Soweto uprising that we see depicted. And I think that extrapolating from that, and if I heard you correctly just now, it makes sense then that the film and the people involved in its promotion and whatever would want to target, pun intended, Biko for rebranding and representation because of his influence on the youth. That he was, I believe, a generation or so behind the Hanis and the Winnies and that was in part what was his threat to apartheid in the first place, why he was targeted, why he would have been assassinated, and why in 87 and through today, young people in South Africa and elsewhere would not be encouraged to pick up his work. Because to your point, I've never found any evidence that he was directly involved in more militant wings of the struggle, but it was clear his analysis points people in that direction, in terms of encouraging a pride in oneself and a unity amongst oneselves that to me at least logically points people into certain directions of militancy, organizational work, if not with the Mkhonto Owesi's way, some other form. So I think ultimately that is and then because he would have been seen, maybe because of his relative youth and his relative distance from the more overt militancy, that this is someone we would want to find pliable, and we can an image and a symbol that is more malleable, particularly now that he's dead, and we can just go ahead and depict him in this sort of way. And then to your point earlier, we can Malcolm Xify him and Obamafy him, and ultimately Obamafy both of them, which is so anyway. Yeah, that's interesting. That's all.
This would be a topic for a greater discussion, because again, I'm not as versed in this history as I should be. I imagine this might be Arlene Eisen, you can confirm, but according to Zappo comrades, the Black Consciousness movement was critical of ANC, and ANC killed more of them than the white regime. So yeah, I mean, it would be interesting actually to delve into with a historian of some of those different histories and movements. But
I hate to say I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be surprising, unfortunately. Yeah. Especially given having just watched that I don't think you can get it in this country, but with the VPN assistance, the Winnie Mandela series that they just did, as flawed as it was, it was a reminder of where the ANC was politically. It is politically, and you could easily see how they're not going to line up in defense of any radicalism at all. So yeah, that's a good point. Very good point.
So where do we want to go next? The visits, some of the conversations. I have some different quotes we can go to, but whatever you want to do into.
We can do some quotes, and I have I'm like reading some of them, but you could start with some quotes, and then we can go through those, and I might have a couple of others also, because I do think it's interesting reading them. I wish I would have checked.
Oh man, I'm sorry to interrupt with this. My bad, man.
Go ahead.
I just got this text, man. Michael Wright from the 5 Heartbeats dies at age 70. God damn it.
Yeah, he died a couple of days ago. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah. My boys just texted me that. Son of a...
I meant to hit you. Yeah, rest in peace, Michael. I knew Michael a little bit, right? Yeah, I
didn't
knew
know
Michael
that.
a little. Yeah, I
Ah,
worked with Michael on Oz.
that's right.
Yeah, I worked with Mike. My
Shit.
first scene on Oz was with Michael. Rest in peace. I hadn't talked to him in about 20 years. We talked for a little bit after that too, for a little bit. But
I
rest
don't
in
know
peace.
nothing about him off the screen, but I loved
Mhm.
him in everything, even in Sugar Hill. I thought he was dope. I like every time I saw him, I thought he was dope.
Uptown
So
legend.
that's yeah. Sorry
Manhattan
about the
legend.
interruption. My bad. The text just threw me. I
Yeah.
wasn't ready for that. My bad. Damn.
I thought you saw it. Oh yeah. We've been going
I
over this
didn't.
over
I
the.
didn't.
Well, there's been a lot of other things on the internet. So
I've been a little distracted for sure. Yeah. Oh man.
But what I was saying about the lines in the film that's interesting to me is, and I wish I would have checked how accurate they are to what Biko said, is there's a way that I feel like if they, let's just go for it, they are accurate, that the way it shows when you like, you could take a speech, right, and put it in a particular context and totally use it in a completely different way. Because there's a way that they take like the searches for things like pride, consciousness, humanitarianism, and if you put it under this kind of like liberal Democrat, because they're really big on like the word democracy in the film, right? Democracy, democracy, democracy. So you do liberal democracy, and then you attach these kind of ideas to liberal democracy. You just make Biko just a champion for liberal democracy, and this is what he is. And I'm like reading this shit, and I'm mad because I'm pissed because like if this is Biko's actual words, you're making me hate his actual words. You're pissing me. Like, fuck you for doing this shit. It's really pissing me off.
I don't know which ones you have in mind, but I did get that vibe because there were a couple times that we were watching. I would say to my daughters, I even at one point I said to them, he said that, but I don't know if that's like, it was kind of like that. Like those words left his mouth or were written in his, but it kind of felt like the context was a little off, or maybe I don't know. It was weird. It was because I felt I had a kind of similar thing. Like, what's happening? Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be in his screen name for the next future shows.
I'm definitely gonna run with it for sure. That is hilarious.
So,
oh man,
there's the first confrontation, or the first meeting between Woods and Biko, and he goes out to see him. I mean, they make this big deal, right, of like how impossible and weird it is for a white person to go out and into a black, which I guess under apartheid, it probably fucking was. I mean, to some extent, but it's in the movie, it's really like, well, you would do that, kind of thing.
Going to the Twilight Zone.
And it's after we've seen him at his house, right? Where we've seen him with his nice manicured lawn and black maid, and we got to talk about the goodbye scene for that too, by the way, where they say goodbye to her, they leave her, and she's just standing there looking at the sink. But anyway, good.
And I'm sorry, and I think that is a holdover from like things like In the Heat of the Night, going into Blacktown, right? You going into Blacktown, right? And then like the blues music comes on, and they did it in this movie where you would get the kind of you come out like, you're like, dude, like stop that shit. It was like,
he's really on safari now. He's like,
he's on safari. I'm like, dog, if I start seeing Lady Smith, Black Mambazo, and I'm gonna kick somebody in the face. Fuck this movie, man.
Start looking for Simba running in the background.
Sorry. It's the caricature of beautiful shit. It's what I'm talking about. Like they caricature it so bad it pisses me off. And it kind of, for years, it turned Black American people off to that stuff, and it made them make fun of it. And it's bad. It's fucking trash.
We're gonna have to do Coming America soon to have a real reckoning.
Oh man, yes.
But you're right, absolutely, M2A, all of that. I think that this is another thing of this movie being for white people too, though. Like, and being a film that's about also preserving a certain kind of white liberal innocence on a kind of like world scale. And I think it's deeply connected in Hollywood. Like it's you know Hollywood better than any of us, Mtume, but like white liberals in Hollywood, right? It's just like a whole genre of human being there.
We're just not
And
aware.
and so I think like when you watch this, like I do feel there's so much resonance between films like this and the whole genre of films that look back at segregation in this period too, right? And dealt with like whether it be was it Mississippi, what's the one that's again about
Mississippi.
Medgar Evers,
Oh,
right? But is that
with
Ghost-
Alec Baldwin.
Mississippi, bro.
Holy
I don't even think.
shit.
And
Mississippi.
it's even worse.
Yeah.
Medgar Evers don't even have a scene.
And
Let's
James
get
Woods
shot.
is in that. We get
Yes.
playing himself.
So, but I'm just saying, like, there was a whole genre of that shit, again, and like it's always when they want to show these systems, right? They show these like really just unhinged, sadistic whites, right? That kind of run and manage these systems, and the caring whites who are just good liberals, but like, oh well, you're. And there's their line he says when Biko says something about you, and he's like, well, you're talking about the Afrikaner government. You're not talking about me.
That's right. He does say that. He does say that. Yeah.
And
That's
so, yeah, I mean, there's another one I'm thinking of, or another genre I'm thinking of, but it is like, there's so much resonance between those like northern white or Hollywood white looks at Black condition within South, right? And what the
This was one of the
apartheid government
reasons-
was like down there. Go ahead.
This was one of the reasons why that Jordan Peele got me with Get Out. That he centered the racism with the northern white liberal. And I was like, finally, this was, because it's so easy to have the tobacco spitting, dirty redneck, with the N words, so easy. But when they got the wine and he says, I voted for Obama twice and all that kind of stuff, I was like, yeah.
But I've always said the problem with one of the problems with that movie is that the white liberal is secretly the degraded Republican.
No doubt.
I'm saying
I chose my words carefully. He got me.
Yo, he got me. Yeah. And that's what he does. They still need to hold on to the because that's like the point about the guy that Biko punches too. I mean, the guy is such white people want to punch him, liberals want to punch him. You know what I'm saying?
Even a Brit would want to hit him.
Yeah, hey, like I want to hit this guy.
And in fact, that's the point, right? That's actually it. I wish I would have. I got to go talk to my children again after this. I got because I wanted to. That's the you're all hitting it. I scratched the surface with when I mentioned it to them, but this is like a continuation of the Boer War argument. It's like we may have lost to these crackers, but we are the superior whites. So yeah, hit him, but me, Donald, I'm your friend. I'm gonna be heroic. Even because wouldn't you have preferred if we had beat the Dutch? Apartheid would be so much better for you if we had won. So don't point at me. Right? It's their government. I have nothing to do with this. Yo,
do you Mtume have the true liberal line? Because I have that exchange.
I don't know if I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Show me or read it.
I'll read it. I'm not gonna try to do accents.
You can't. No,
I'm
because they're bad. So you're trying to reference bad. I didn't shit on Kevin Kline's accent enough too. That shit's trash too. It is the battle of bad American conservatory accent work between Kline and Denzel.
Jared,
I do think Denzel wins.
Mtume maybe doesn't fit because he could pull that off, but Jared, you've definitely risen to Kevin Costner status. You are above needing to accent. You could do Robin Hood like you from Wisconsin. You know what I'm saying? Like you've earned it.
So anyways, he's like, there's some exchange, and he says, but you would agree with my banning, right? Biko says this to Kline, right? And he says, I think your ideas are dangerous, but no, I don't approve of your banning. And he says, a true liberal. And he says, not a title I'm ashamed of. But he says, but I bet one that you would regard with some contempt, which I'm also like, yeah, me too. But Biko says, and I think this is it's not exact, but this is based on stuff that Biko did say about white liberals, because he was very critical of white liberals, right? Similar to like Dr. King, kind of on that note. He says, I just think that a white liberal who clings to the advantages of his white world, jobs, housing, education, Mercedes, which we should note, Woods drives a Mercedes, right? Is perhaps not best qualified to tell blacks how they should react to apartheid. Wood says, I wonder what sort of liberal you'd make, Mr. Biko, if you were the one who had the job, the house, and the Mercedes, and the whites lived in townships. And Biko says, it's a charming idea.
So that's what I was getting at. When I read that one review that makes this point that made me uncomfortable, that though diminished, not properly contextualized, and not given enough time, what we do see of Biko's politics accurately represent his argument technically by the letter of what he actually might have said at some point or wrote, not in the broader context of a struggle that he was engaged in and supportive of. So if I understood your point, Jay, that is something like, and that kind of joke is what he would have often made. Like he had that kind of, humor. But if you do it in the context of for instance, a film that's about Biko from his perspective and in the struggle of South Africans and all of that, it would maybe make more sense if you hear him in dialogue with other elements of the struggle and maybe explaining why his public approach to Black consciousness is this way, whether we agree or not, I don't know. But the point that would be what an honest attempt at a film would want to do. But Attenborough was honest. I'm making a political movie, and I'm saying it publicly as a liberal thing against apartheid, but it's also privately, I'm sure, as we're unpacking here, an Attenborough defense of the British liberal rule of the world, not an actual African liberation and not an actual decolonial struggle. Attenborough's not wanting that. He after all, he would have to give up Lord and Sir. So yeah, I just think that's wild. It's very, in that way, becomes even slick and more insidious. And maybe I'm grateful in this regard that it wasn't an actual better film that might have carried its impact even farther than it has.
So a thought that I had while I was watching the movie was about when you center a particular character, is like, what does it do functionally? So centering Woods, you get his psychological process of discovery and like movement, right? And he's able to, so when he goes into something, he has the moments of realization, fear, nervousness, and you get to see his changes. Because Biko is a secondary character, he's a reactive character, all we get to experience is his actions without context and contextualization and psychological process. Because let's think about it. One of the things that I kind of hate about this, and I think this, I haven't read Woods's books, but I do think is, from what I'm seeing, really pernicious about his whole project, is this thing that we were friends. This is a challenge for me because this like kind of presupposes that Biko did not have any kind of tactical thoughts about his relationship with Donald Woods. and that maybe being friendly towards him had a lot more to do with. And I'm making this guess. I don't know Steve Biko or anything, but I'm just going to make this guess based on just everything. That his relationship with him had a lot more political grounding and thought than just, we're just two guys who are kind of hitting it off like we're at the bar. That's some bullshit. Like, that's just not how someone who was that politically involved, that politically significant, that intelligent would have been operating. It's bullshit, right? It's just not real. And by doing that, you eliminate a kind of question if you would have had him as the center of the character. Because if you make him the center character, he goes through that psychological process, or it's a flat movie. It's a flat movie. He's going through who is this guy? Interesting. I don't know. He's white. He has to talk to his wife about it, talk to one of his friends, has the friend, but get this motherfucker out of here. We got to think about, we're getting all of that. He's not that in this. And it's really, so that's the power of making him secondary also. You're able to not have to do
We only see Biko. We only see him again from Woods' perspective. So you see him with his group of friends, but we don't know what they're actually talking about until he picks up the microphone or starts talking to Donald, essentially. So, and I'm going to share this with you real quick, if I can just, as an apology to you both and to your audience here, because I should have looked into this before. I didn't even think to. I don't know why I didn't even think to find the Kindle copy. But I just wanted to show you. I had just, while we were sitting here, got the Kindle copy, and look at. Oh no, that's not it. That's not it. My fault. The chapter is called "When We Become Friends." That's what I'm trying to show you. So to your point, I was just trying to, and I don't know why I can't find it to share, but that's the chapter. It's called "When We Become Friends." And then he goes into when he meets Dr. Ramphele and the Mercedes stuff and all that. But that's literally the point. It's titled "We Become Friends." You know, our friendship. And yeah.
So the next thing that you get that's, I think, of significance in the film, right, is like he takes him, he shows him a health clinic, he shows him a community center, he shows him a garden, right? And he goes into this whole, he does lay out some of what he's talking about, right, within the lens of, you know, the degradation of white dominated society upon Black people, and that they have to sort of like, you know, I'll pull some of the quotes, but essentially, you know, saying that we have to demonstrate for ourselves that we can do things for ourselves, and that this is a part of overcoming the kind of psychological effects of colonialism and so on and so forth. But I don't think that's like the most important thing within this. I think it's actually, again, for the white audience to say, oh, Biko just basically ran a nonprofit and was like trying to community garden and fucking, you know, run a little community center and like have a, you know, like why are they against that? Like, you know, we should have those things, you know? And so I do think, again, it's really for that liberal point, even more than Biko's commentary on Black consciousness, which does come in. I'll pull a couple of things he says there, but that.
And as I'm just scanning the book again, that's what he's essentially showing here. Like it's kind of giving that vibe. I mean, so in this regard, the film is true to the book. It's like, you know, she met me, she took me to this little hospital clinic thing. It's, you know, and then we became friends.
There's nothing violent happening. They just want rights. They're good ones.
Oh man. Am I gonna have to? Am I gonna go back and actually read this book?
You should do a live like on the book.
God.
A live reading.
And if I'm, is this true? It like Mandela's not even mentioned in it. No,
not be.
That can't be right. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. I'll come back to that. That's some.
So
wild.
You know, he's like, he shows them the clinic. He says, a clinic for Black people, staffed by Black people, run by a Black doctor. Was this her idea or yours? Right. This is Dr. Rapelli. Right. It's like, come on, I'll show you around. It was a collective idea, but we're lucky to have her. And so Wood says, And a white liberal doctor doing the same thing wouldn't serve your purposes? And Biko says, when I was a student trying to qualify for the jobs you people will let us have, I suddenly realized it wasn't just good jobs that were white. The only history we read was made by the white man, written by the white man, television, cars, medicines, all invented by the white man, even football. Now, in a world like that, it's not hard to believe there's something inferior about being born black. So that's the dialogue running through the kind of scene as he's showing people things. But
And like, I feel like this is like, I know I keep saying this word humanitarianism, and it's interesting, I think, to think about, if you think about American movies like throughout the decades, and it's not like American Hollywood really ever really tried to do anything particularly radical in critique, but you would see like maybe in the 70s, maybe like not nihilistic critiques of government, right? And it would be more that kind of thing. They really, when they would deal with race, they would deal with it very opaquely, in a kind of like, there are these things that are unanswered. But I feel like the 80s, where they saw politics was this kind of like advocacy for humans, but like I think someone say it's like in the same way you would advocate for zoo animals, right? Or people in the wild, right? Like they deserve the right to live, right? It's like PETA or shit, that type of stuff, like when it comes to black folk people. And I mean, I would say if you think about the 80s, the predominant narratives you would see we're still, I think, black subjects in this kind of thing. And then you would have one or two movies about something happening in you would have a movie like the Killing Fields or something like that in Asia or things like that. But they would take the politics out of it, and they would, and I think it's part of the function of the last scene and why they need it, where they have the massacre, or how they want to do this massacre, is to kind of show you that the crisis point, like they're being slaughtered, like, because it's like watching like a slaughter of animals, right? But like not in a way that they're animals that are wild, that they should be loved, that they should be cared for, right? They're not, and they have the right to life, and there's no politics in it. And I think that was like the predominant thing of the 80s when it came to these kinds of movies, is we could focus everything into humanitarianism, which then also like is interesting, because then you have like Live Aid some years a little bit later, We Are the World. I'm thinking of the images of the things that we would see, all the hunger crises that are happening in the global south, and how they would kind of figure these things out. The world just in humanitarian crisis, and liberals need to be more aware, possibly be a bit more daring. And Donald Woods can be like a surrogate example, right? And even his wife too, because like his wife is like, she's kind of like 5 or 6 like steps behind him. She has to give him the whole, you really just want to get your book done, right? And that scene to me is key, because then he admits that, but then he says, it's about Steve. He says that it's about Steve, he says. And I find that interesting. He doesn't go into a political awakening of, the way this works and this and that. And it hasn't given him a greater thought of the totality of politics globally. It's about Steve and doing what's good for Steve. And, even her awakening is a bit flimsy. It's just like she just wants her husband to be safe and her kids to not lose him.
He
her
does have that.
is
Sorry, what? It's not really an awakening, right?
It's their kids get fucking anthraxed with
right,
basically, and she's like, "Fuck this! You go write that book, honey."
That's right.
Yeah,
they killed the white kid. They tried to kill the white kids. How dare they?
Dude, they burned a little blonde girl like on the face. White people like get outraged.
Right. I forgot about. Oh my god, I actually forgot about that. But that's right. And then now you can go. But I was thinking, because at that one, I think it's the scene you're talking about where she's saying, you just want to get your name on a book, and he's saying, he like yells at her something. He's like like, but this is what else can I do? Like, this is my contribution. He's like, what else? Like, it's because I remember thinking, I mean, you are a journalist, but you're also a human being. You could join other organizations. You could join the underground. You could join you could join this. You could do that. There's all kinds of things you could do that don't involve you writing this stupid ass book. But
and he's gonna go do a college tour, right? Isn't that the whole thing of he's gonna tour around and let people know what's going on? He's gonna tell the story to raise awareness among the white liberals in the UK and the US.
Well, we all look, but that's just the reality. Every college lecture I've given is revolutionary contribution. That's so, like, we all out here. Donald
He's Tim Wise, man. You know what I'm saying?
Whoa, shit. Yo.
This is who Tim Wise imagines himself to be in the morning when he wakes up. He's like, if I was in South Africa, I would smuggle this book dressed up as a preacher.
Look, I will say the one time I was in the same room with Tim Wise at an ADOS sponsored event years ago, that is exactly the vibe he gave. It's like, I'm about to tear this shit down, and you are all lucky to be witnesses to what I'm about to do on this stage. It was like, and when he was finished, it was kind of like, don't you all see? I'm the shit. Like, it was weird. It was a whole but that's funny. It's hilarious. And little did I know, he's just following in Donald Woods' footsteps. But that's I forgot what I was gonna say, but that's fine. That's it. That was it. Yeah, that was Now, I did witness the lecture, So I think you all are right. I think so. Just in a very quick search of this Kindle copy, Mandela is obviously mentioned. I missed that part. Mandela is mentioned throughout the book. Chris Hani is not. I did find in a search of the words communism and socialism, I did find something that is in this Woods book that I think, especially after what we've been talking about today, Attenborough would have intentionally wanted to keep out of the book. There's an interview in here where Biko is asked directly about communism. And he says, we're not communists because the Black Consciousness Movement is committed to being above ground and working within the law. And to be a communist organization would mean you are illegal. And they make reference to the fact that whites have this real fear of communism. But then he also, in another part of the interview, says very quickly, sort of that standard, what we hear a lot in that time, and in some cases now, we're not communists because then we would just be an offshoot of Moscow. But we do advocate socialism because that is more akin to Black communalism. Whatever else is said in this that I'll read later, and whatever we might think about that alone, including just that alone, would have upset the apple cart, I think, of this film to a point that his highness would not have been comfortable as a director, But I just thought that was interesting.
I mean, and to me, this is a more interesting film that Attenborough would never make, and he shouldn't have tried because he couldn't have done it. I don't know that much about, because I know there was definitely discussions of Biko's position on this, with different African people within the communist socialist movement. I've read things about it. I haven't really delved into it, but to me, that's the interesting film right there. And there's this, to me, this shitty 2.5 hour movie that we got of Kevin Kline running through his safari to get to Britain, right, as a priest, right, is evidence that you can have a film with full amount of political discussion, right? Because this version that takes out politics is boring as shit. This movie is not interesting. There's nothing interesting about it at all, right? But a movie that would take that and talk about Biko's development, the different elements, how they interacted, fought, argued, found synthesis at times. That's the interesting film. And then you can have Donald Woods just come in on the side as like a 3-scene character. We'll give him 3 scenes, 3 scenes,
That's deep. He did escape to England. I forgot about that. And as a priest. So it's like all that imagery is just perfect. Wow.
The next scene. So there's a couple other things I do want to point, because I honestly, like, really, we can end this discussion after Biko's murdered and like just say like, he escapes as a priest and give a couple details of that, but there's nothing politically to analyze within that part of the film really at all. Other than he gets a lot of help from the Black South Africans, and he just says the word Biko, right? And then that's, that everybody's like, oh, we'll help you. But he's back home with his wife. So this is another one. This might be the first. No, it's not the first scene with his wife, I don't think, because I think he talks to his wife about going to meet him at first. Is the first scene, but this is like the second scene you get with him and his wife. And the scenes are all like, they live lavish as hell, right? Like they have like this really, really, and they make sure to draw that like contrast.
That pool,
right,
bro, that pool they got, man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
They got the pool, they got this beautiful lawn, the house is just like shining white, right? All of this kind of stuff. And I don't remember if he says that he's going to hire some Black journalists at that point, but he does end up doing that later on, which is something that we'll come back to eventually. But he says something, and his wife says, has he talked you into Black consciousness? Right. And he's like, no, but I have agreed to let him take me to a Black township. He's going to educate me. And I just thought that was like so funny. Yeah, Jeffrey from Fresh Prince does show up to help save him at the end.
I made a salad. Oh, this shit is Jeffrey.
That's
so
true. That was the wildest part.
Yeah.
But anyways, then you get this scene, right, where then he goes to the Black township, which is another really fucked up scene, honestly, in the movie, I think. But yeah, did you want to say more about that other stuff?
No, I mean that's like a function of films when you think about the outsider who's the protagonist, and you see it with class often, or racialized class or whatever, something like this, where you get the invitation. I think I said it earlier. It's like getting this invitation, shows the humanity of the people who invite you. And then it is in like this idea that he can kind of come down and get his humanity. I mean, his wife was probably like this, but it always is very like the spouse is always like the one who's a bit more cautious and like, well, and often it's the wife, because these characters are very rarely women. The central characters, so they love it. Well, don't make sure he doesn't poison you with the Black consciousness, there, sir.
You know where they reverse that? Because I thought that's I'm gonna derail us again here, but I thought the trope you were talking about was not so much the political one, but where the spouse is always the one hesitant about the involvement of their loved one in whatever usually the husband is doing. And there's always that, but it's always that I know I'm marrying a cop, but when you do the undercover cop stuff, I'm worried about you, and I'm constantly harassing you about, you're changing and you're never home and your kid. And it's like, and I was getting that vibe, and I thought, and I was like, they forgive me, where they're reversing that in terms of gender is in this new Lioness shit. Where,
I haven't seen it.
I admit I'm watching it. I'm not proud of it. I admit I'm watching it, and it's annoying how often it's like in almost every episode there's this scene where she's like, I gotta go. I can't tell you where I'm going, and the husband's like, oh, you're never home. Your daughters miss you. It's dangerous. And it's like, bro, you knew. It's like you married. It's like the same. It's such an annoying component to these. It's like anyway. So I don't recommend the show. I don't recommend.
It's reflexive tropes. It's like they have to build, and this is where I also realize this film is also for American audiences too. I think.
Yeah.
Where you see, because like you have like we're gonna liken where the black people live in South Africa to the hood or Blacktown. It gives off like a 60s segregation film, right? The husband and the wife are kind of like they're shielded because they live in this big home, and because the husband has the opportunity to go towards black people, he gets enlightened, and then the wife has to kind of come along, and the way she will is through struggle, because she'll deal with the struggle because she's a good mom. Her daughter gets burned in the face. She's she gets her little card. She gets her little car journey looking like Jason Bourne going through Africa.
They got to sneak out. They're under surveillance by a black cop, which I thought was an interesting. I was like, why are they doing that? To what extent were black cops at that level of the detective services? Would they have had a black one surveilling? Why did Attenborough choose this? That part actually bothered me because we see him hanging outside the house a lot.
Well, he doesn't explain so much in the film in that way.
Sorry,
go ahead. Yeah.
There's a real reference there, because there were, some of them are called, like, they do talk about informers and stuff like that within the film, but this was actually, and there's a comment, they slightly put it in the movie, because there's this line that Biko has, maybe I can find it in a minute, but just about like, basically it was actually kind of one of the best things politically within the movie about not becoming a black cop, basically, and not advocating black people to become policed within a racist system, essentially. But actually, I remember Orasami Burton talking about this, right, in one of his pieces where, I think it's actually in the beginning of Tip of the Spear, when he talks about blackness, and he talks about Biko's construction of blackness. It was just really like a political category. It's not just a racial term for him. And he basically says, like, black people who become cops are white, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. And so there was a,
that's a good point.
So
yeah.
there is a little bit of a, I'm going to try to find the quote, because there is something in it about it in the movie, but there must have been some degree of it, of like collaboration, basically. And
this was a big feature, a core feature of Biko's black consciousness, was the political definition, not the pigmentation definition of blackness. And it just sucks that I would have had to figure that out and been at your level to figure that out. Why don't they just say that shit in the film as part of explaining us Biko's analysis? Why I gotta be
it's
at
all
Jared
props.
and them two mates level of analysis to get this shit? I think that's bullshit. Fucking Attenborough.
It's just props. He just wants to put props in places, It's
and then I do also want to ask you about the rest of that scene that I'm picturing, where the wife has to sneak out with the children because Donald has gone off as the priest in his own escape. The way they leave their maid. Because they don't talk to her, they don't explain it to her, and it's depicted as if she's quietly aware but not wanting to address it and just focused on the dishes, because the woman doesn't turn around. And I don't know what is bothering me about that. Like, I don't.
Well, no. Jared, I want to add on to this, because this bothered me too. When the kids ask her, they first ask about the dog, and they said they'll give her to the neighbor.
Right.
And then they say, how is your, I forget what the maid's name is. They say, we don't know. So I was confused. I'm like, so they can't trust her? They think she's not intelligent enough to stay quiet? And the fact that there's a scene of her looking for the family and she doesn't know what's going on. and then you see the cops busting the door, and they don't really touch on it after that. And I'm sitting there going, well, this is jacked up. Like,
and
you
they never have a
leaving me-
conversation with her about Biko, right? Like there's never a scene where she offers her opinions of the thing he's involved in, right? That you thought maybe would he have had a conversation with this black maid about all the black consciousness he's engaged in?
Yeah, it's all
She's
kinds
just
of
standing.
weird.
I was like, what is? Yeah, I just thought
It
that. Yeah, I
probably
didn't
would have
get it.
been. It probably would have been neater if they just, like, you know, they just did like the daughter on Family Matters and just had her just like disappear. You know what I'm saying? Out the movie, rather than
Or
leave
I
that
was waiting.
untied gate.
The stereotypical scene I was waiting for was what we've seen in many other instances, where the black maid gives that line that lets you know without overstepping her boundary that she knows what's going on. It's like I don't know how they, you know, we've seen millions of examples, just that little throwaway line, that little, like, that lets you know, I know what's going on, but I'm not going to cross fully the social boundary here. But we know she's just standing there literally looking into the sink. And I was like, what is this? What am I supposed to be getting from this? So yeah, that was, yeah, maybe they didn't trust her. I don't know.
It's a weird scene. So I found the part where he talks about the black policeman here. And it's also, I'm gonna have to find and pull up the piece that the Orasami Burton quoted, because it's much better than this. But it's in the piece after Woods has been charged, right? So Woods, there's a thing that happens. There's a speech that's given. What is it that actually? I'm trying to remember the thing that actually triggers. He won't reveal a witness to violence that took place, right? That's what it is. Is the white cops come through, they destroy the whole community center, you know, break up everything, break up the windows, and they're all wearing masks, and it's this kind of mob police, you know, violence, which of course is very, very real, right? But there's a person, a black person, who witnesses it firsthand and tells Woods about it. Woods won't reveal who that is, and he's facing 6 months jail time, basically, for like essentially like contempt of court kind of thing, you know. And so there's this little interaction where they're all sort of talking about it. Woods is talking with Biko, but there's also a couple of other characters who are very underdeveloped in the film. You don't really know like who they are or much about them. But one of them says, someday I think this is Biko here. Says someday we'll be the damn system in this country. A lot of us are going to die for nothing if our system turns into nothing but a black version of theirs. Another guy says, I could accept that, right? So one of the other dudes is like, I can take that, you know. And Biko says, a bent policeman is a bent policeman, Soga. He breaks the same heads for the same reasons. To substitute a black one for a white one, it's not worth the price of one child. Never mind 6 months in jail for Mr. Woods. Right? So that's the extent, and it's really actually a way, I think, to depoliticize the point that he's making there, right? Because it's really turning it into like, we don't want to become our oppressors, right? And so it's doing that liberal thing that Woods was worried about from the beginning, of like, oh, you're a black supremacist. We don't, you know. And so it's kind of him talking down to the other folks who, you know, maybe want the black supremacy thing, right? Is kind of the way it's being framed, and saying like, no, we don't want to become like that.
And whoever really advocates for that black supremacist thing, like whoever ever like, and is that like the only scene we get in the film where Biko is depicted absent Donald Woods?
Woods is there.
Oh, so then it's okay. So that makes even.
Okay, I mean, so Woods gets to hear it.
He gets to hear.
It's for his benefit, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if he did say that in Woods's presence, right? Like, we can't really divorce the fact that, again, to what you were talking about, M2May, right? There's some tactical political relationship going on between the two of them. So he may want to make that correction in front of the newspaper editor, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny, like
yeah.
that. I'll say quick thing about that. And that does a lot. It kills like the black supremacy thing. It can connect. It can kill any connection to like communism or things like that. This idea of like any kind of totalitarian authority. It just does like a big like whoosh over any kind of totalitarian possibility, right? And that liberal democracy is really what he wants.
I can't find the quote I can't find what you're referencing in Ori's book. And there's
I'm gonna try to find it.
Biko reference in the index. So obviously this book is just trash. We just throw this shit out. Just get rid of this thing. I don't know what we were doing. just tip of the spear shit. Yeah, no, that actually that's man, that's wild. That's wild. I do kind of wish that scene would, because we don't have any. That is true. Then we don't have any scenes where a Woods free Biko scene, right? We don't.
I think there is. I think there.
So we don't learn anything about him that Woods would not have been privy to. Yeah,
there is. Hold on, my bad.
There's a few
when they come to it's just when he comes to his like when the police are coming to his house, right? At one point you do get that, like, you know, of him like sort of
and in the cell
interacting with them.
Yeah, too, yeah,
a couple, but not much. Most of it is through Woods.
And they're like things through actions. They're not the way they're kind of situated. Like how you don't make him an active character is you make those scenes like someone's coming to visit him. So he's being interrogated. So he's still actually truncated. He's been now arrested, and you have and really the focus of that scene is on the racist white man fucking with him.
Or the good white doctor.
Or the good white doctor, exactly. Right. and we're constantly seeing him then be reactive, but his reactive moments are always a surprise to us. We're not seeing him go through the psychological process. Like when he punches him, it's more of a oh shit, rather than like it's not framed like we're in his psychology and he's just like, I gotta punch this white man now, right? No, it's like, oh shit, he punched him. Wow.
Right. We don't even get the Rambo flashbacks to him being tortured in Vietnam.
Right. We don't get the he's like, right. Them scenes are so funny in Rambo when he's like fucking it's so good, right? No, so it's part of it. It's like he's separated, and you get these little peaks, but they're never anything, fully kind of fleshed. I'm like, yeah, no, you're right. And then after you definitely get nothing.
And even go ahead, Jay. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I can't find the reference either. I don't think it is in Tip of the Spear, but I'm fairly positive it's in.
Well, I know he talks a lot about the way the inmates politicized blackness in a very similar way. I didn't see where he made the reference to Biko, but it's talking about the similar process, at least, of Biko's approach to how the prisoners were defining race. Damn, I just lost my thought again. Whatever. Anyway, I am going to go back and read some more of this Woods book, and I think, because I was disturbed self-critically at how much I don't remember or have ever studied on some of these details regarding Biko's relationship to other elements of the struggle and even what others were saying of him at the time. Like I'd like to know what were the Mandelas saying of him? What was Hani saying? Like what were other, like what were folks? So I'd like to learn more about that, and we'll look into that at some point soon. Because I didn't like. It was one of those moments where I'm like, I don't like how this movie is exposing how much I should know and don't, and they're getting away with some shit here that I just know they are. So yeah. But yeah, I did think that scene, his scene at that death scene, I was disturbed not only by they made it, and I always go back and forth on this, even in terms of some recent discussions of what's happening in Gaza. Where's my line in the value of depicting the violence people are suffering? And I admit that in rewatching this film, I was struggling to look at the screen at the depictions of Biko's beaten body. When they go to see him at the morgue, I was like, oh wow, I even said it out loud. They're really going to take the sheet off and make us. And I know, there's that whole, Emmett Till, the guys, it's like I don't know, but in this film, I didn't like it, and I didn't like the depiction of Biko's killing with the added emphasis, and I don't even know if this is meant to be accurate, of the good white doctor, the relatively good white doctor trying to say he's not going to survive the ride and all that, and then they depict all of the horror on the one evil guard. And then similarly, I really didn't like one of the reviews I read made this point, that it said by the time you see the brutality of the Soweto uprising at the end, this author said, I had forgotten almost what we were talking about, because everything had been about Donald Woods. I had forgotten that this is the context, and then they bring it back only to see this trauma porn. I was like, this is just we just get to watch black people getting, with no, again, reference to what this spurred in terms of rebellion, uprising, response. Like, there's no discussion of it. There's no, maybe there was some text at the end about, but there was no real, like, Biko's influence on this and why they were doing it and what was going on. Like, it's just, oh wait, let me just quickly remind you, with some scenes of black kids getting abused. And then of course we have the scene where you graphically see or was that at the beginning, where you see the woman's breasts exposed and the guy grabbing her? Was that at the beginning? Okay. So yeah. I understand why Attenborough and directors would say they would want to do this. And maybe if the film itself were different, it would mean more or something else. But I was really bothered by how they did that.
One factual point to add. I mean, I agree with, it's just hard to watch, and I don't know where I weigh in also on, like, what's the political value of that. One factual point is he was arrested and he was tortured for like a month before you get to that point. And they just skip right to it. And I'm not saying I want like a long, like I want all that necessarily, but there's not even explained, right? So there's not there's no recognition or discussion around that. So you just get the kind of like, he's already basically in like a vegetable state, and the doctor's saying like his blood has gotten into his spinal fluid or whatever, all these things. And, so there's, yeah, it's also not historically what happened entirely. Like, there was.
Do we even get a scene where somebody says he's been locked up for a month? Like, where somebody's like, he's been gone for a month. Like, I don't remember that either. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's weird because I don't know why I remembered this, but I did remember before I watched the film that aspect that Biko had. I think I had read it recently that had been for a month. So when I was watching the film, I was like, oh, then they must like depict like the month that he was there, or would they know, or his like through like the family. And then I was like, oh, they're just gonna skip that. Okay, well, damn, it's so I watched this film. I think I mentioned a little bit last week, called The Traitors by Raymond Glaser. It's coincidentally, he was actually disappeared for making the film by the Peronists. And but in The Traitors, it's about like violence against communist labor organizers and people, and from like Peronists and all that type of stuff. And in the film, when they would show the violence, you would never see the actual brutalization of them, it would always be POV shots of the fascists punching into the camera. And I know that was partly because Glazer, his political awareness as a third cinema filmmaker and as a human being with some actual real understanding, he said, I want you to feel the brutality, but I'm not going to exploit the brutality of what happens to people by you seeing cuts and bruises and all this type of shit. But you got the power, right? What he did depict, and it's probably what got him disappeared, was them going up in here and blowing out the chest of the traitor who was the union boss. Oh, he showed you that. He didn't
Wow.
he said, yeah, he said, oh, I'm going to show you, see him get blown up. But everybody else, I'm not going to show that. You're going to see the fact. So basically, everything basically you see is through the fascists or at the fascists, right? Them doing the brutality, because like the whole thing of like the morgue, that's all about Woods. Like they focus on, Kevin Kline having this moment where he's in tears and then like his other guy who works with the paper, his little awakening, because he was like he didn't really trust black folk, right? And now he gets to see the brutality and take the pictures, and it also
and Woods is making him take the pictures,
right? And there's also this like all the president's men kind of thing to it, that the media people are actually like the real like vanguard of truth bullshit. Throw that shit to the fucking trash. You really getting that? They really break the stories. But when it came to the uprising, the fact that shit's happening through the consciousness of Woods, it's like him looking out a window, and then we get into the uprising. I was just like, and then nothing but brutality, and there's no real contextualization of what had happened, right? And then you get Serafina, which is about that, is a fictionalized thing of it within a year later. And it's interesting. And I know it's probably been written about, and I'd be curious to find what was the kind of usage of that through liberal media between this movie, Serafina, of the uprising, and like switching. Is it changing a focus? Is it putting a particular focus on that to use?
They ended apartheid. they freed South Africa. That's what they did.
That's what they did. That's what they did, right? The school.
By the way,
I don't know what it is. Yeah,
I think that's a good. That would be good to look at. The other thing I did look into just quickly was that Biko's killers were they testified during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission 10 years later, and they were given amnesty and never did time. Nobody ever did time. I'm sorry, they were not given amnesty, but they didn't have to do time. Sorry about that. So it's just left as, they admitted it. They said we killed him. And then that was that. They were not given amnesty, but it doesn't mean anything because they didn't go to jail. They weren't punished. So just thought that was a nice little
Truth and Reconciliation. So many people are like, that was some real bullshit. I've heard that from so many.
Desmond Tutu said in his book, I will credit him for this much. He said in his autobiography, he said the reason we did the Truth and Reconciliation Commission as opposed to Nuremberg trials is because we did not win. And I think that's an important, I'll give him credit for that. We didn't win. It was not a victory. So you can't do trials if you don't win. And thought that was like, yeah, man. And then to see how they did Winnie at those things is crazy. That was like, fuck the TRC, man. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
That, I mean, I think that there's a connection between that and all these films too, right? Of like, they knew, I think they knew the South African government was unsustainable, like an unsustainable project, like demographically, political, economically, people just weren't, people move, it was an outlier, I think, in the way that a lot of people around the world do look at, you know, the Israeli settler colony in this moment too, of like, that is some blast from the past racism, you know. Um, but you know, the I think the purpose of these films is a part of that broader kind of truth and record. You know, it's like, oh, well, we make these movies and like we're gonna pivot to something else, but we're still gonna kind of shape the narrative and control what this thing becomes, you know, rather than actually like let's support militant struggle of, you know, I mean, the only thing you get, the only lines in it that are anything in the film really is there's this whole scene with Woods where he's talking about integration, right? Because that's his paradigm, right? He hires some black journalists to integrate his newsroom, which the white news journalists don't like, but they can't do anything about it because they don't run the paper, you know, that kind of stuff. They're like, where are they gonna sit? It's like in the newsroom. Um, you know, like, okay, boss. But you know, they're like, look, we don't want to integrate into your system. We don't want a seat at your table. We want it's an African table. We should have our own, you know, decision around what this should be and what it should be like. And you do get that, but it's just like a fleeting, it's like a little slight reference to it, and that's it, you know.
Well, to that point, there was a scene where I can't remember where, but I do remember because I talked over it to make a point to the girls about this. There is a scene where there's an Africana expositioning about the history where he says we built this place. Like, so when obviously we don't agree, but from their perspective, this is not an African table. They're like, he said, it's that Israeli thing. It's that a land with no people with no land type shit. We made this shit hot, and we beat the British to do it. Like, so, and I said to the girl, like, because my point was, this is, you know, I said it for off air, but like, this is why George Jackson is right to me, because at the end of the day, this is how they think, and they're not interested in. They're like, we built this. This is ours, and globally at this point. So whatever you think you want to do, just understand that's how we're coming to the table with that discussion. This is not your table. We built this shit, and we let you sit at it. Maybe, you know. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's a strong in that scene. So the scene is when Woods goes to advocate on Biko's behalf to the police minister, essentially, and is also basically like telling him like, you should meet this guy, you should talk to him. Like he's trying to co-opt him into this, you know. It kind of like works some liberal, like, hey, let's get together, we could all talk. And he does go through that exposition of, you know, my family arrived in 1620 and we built all of this and, you know, everything else. And it is very, you know, like it's like Marco Rubio's recent speech at NATO or whatever, what EU, whatever he was at, right? When he was like, you know, stop it. Like colonialism was good. Like stop your liberal like hand wringing about this shit. Like we built the world, and you know, these other peoples didn't contribute to the building of society and civilization and all of that shit. And yeah, he definitely represents that attitude. For
yeah,
sure.
you have or like that scene. I mean, it's a very problematic movie, but they cut it out of the original cut in Apocalypse Now. The extended version where they meet the French. You ever seen that? Mm-mm. So it's actually cut out of the original cut of the film. And in the Redux, they have it. There's a scene where when they're on the boat, they go off and it's undecided if it's a dream or not, right? But he goes and he finds a last amount of French people who are basically holding out. They won't leave Vietnam. And Sheen and the boat crew, and I think this is after Lawrence. I think Lawrence Fishburne's already dead by this point. They have it, and when they're there, they have dinner, and in the conversation, one of them says, "Is like, no, we're not leaving. This is ours. We built this shit, right?" right? We built it, and he's like yelling, like, and it gets really, really tense, and they cut the scene. And Coppola said, yeah, like he said, so we had some sound issues, but they didn't want us to have that scene. He said the studio was very much against that scene. I mean, it doesn't alleviate the still major problems with that film. That film is major probably problematic, but it actually is a very interesting scene because it does show you that mentality, like they don't want to let it go. He's like, we will not let this go. We're never going to leave, right? We're never going to go. And I was like,
it's the Gene Hackman scene with Dustin Hoffman in the bathroom of that Jury movie, Runaway Jury.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite scenes. Dustin gives his best liberal speech, and Gene Hackman looks down at him and says, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Like, he's like, you have to understand. Like, I am the colonizer. I don't care. No, it's not that I want the credit scene, Robin. This is another Dustin Hoffman scene, but it's when it's like in Cry Freedom. It's when the liberal meets up with the reaction or the conservative, and is reminded of the battle with whites that they don't really want to have. It's like, this is why I'm liberal and I'm hanging out over here, because those whites, to the point of the film, as I think you both made clear, is those are the whites that you need to be afraid of. They're the bad whites. We're the good whites. And but those bad whites are very clear, man. Nah, man. They're, you know, and if that context had been developed to allow us to see through the lens of Biko's struggles and his movement, that I think would have been even more powerful and made more sense. But you know, they don't, you know, that's not
so. I found the one reference to Mandela, right? So we get this trial for Biko eventually. And it, you know, there's a lot of kind of back and forth between him and like the judge, basically. But you know, I don't know if it's a judge or they're wearing the stupid wigs, which I get is a whole fucking British Commonwealth, like whatever the, you know. So I'm not sure whether
yeah. It's so stupid.
It's so funny to me. It's like, what do you think you're doing?
Be laughing like, what the fuck are y'all wearing, man?
I could not go to if that's what they do in court. I wouldn't be able to keep it together. But he says, when you and others in Black consciousness speak, you say our true leaders have been banned or imprisoned on Robben Island. Who are you referring to specifically? Right. So this is the judge or the lawyer asking him this. He says, I specifically would refer to people like Mandela, Sobikwe, and people like Govind Mbeki. And that's a reference to Umkhonto Sizwe, the Pan-African Communist or Pan-African Congress, right? And then Mandela, right? So those organizations and those figures from those organizations. But obviously that's not, you know, none of that is like really contextualized. They're just individuals within this.
And doesn't he say that they engaged in terrorism? Doesn't he say?
So the next part he says, and is it not true that the common factor with these people is that they have all advocated violence against the government? And then Biko responds, the common factor with these people is that they have selflessly pushed for the struggle of the Black man. And so he says, so your answer to this so-called naked terrorism, which was he previously constituted, we could go back to that or not, but like the whole apartheid government and the whole system of violence imposed of it as naked terrorism, which obviously the judge takes issue with. That your response to this is to provoke violence in the Black community. And he says, no, our movement seeks to avoid violence, but your own words call for direct confrontation. That's the lawyer saying that. He says, that's right. We demand confrontation. Isn't that a demand for violence? Well, you and I are in confrontation right now, but I see no violence. Right. So again, like, how does
isn't that where the wife
isn't
that where the wife smiles too? I think that's like the cut shot where the wife goes,
oh, they love it. They love it, like he's so witty, you know, kind of thing. But like also on that, like, what does that do? You know, I mean, I don't disagree fully with the point, But the point is also then just to say that, like, yeah, well, what we are advocating actually is just to talk to you directly about what we want, essentially, or what we think. Rather, and he does make that point of we don't advocate violence within our movement, which was true of, you know, those movements at the time that he was a part of, right? But, you know, is also differentiating him from now these people who say are the heroes on Robben Island.
Yeah, those scenes were interesting because, like, I think also depending where you sit, you could also read it as him knowing that violence is happening. He's just smarter than them to kind of like not fall into their trap. But then Attenborough does the slick move in not advocating for it as a film, right? So he could like slickly almost in a way trick people like us. I think he thinks he can maybe trick people like us into getting into the movie a little bit, right? Because he can like give him that little bit of like dangerous edge. It's like there, but he won't complete it enough to kind of give us the real catharsis of, you know, them taking up guns and, you know, defending themselves through armed struggle or through, you know, what would be characterized as terrorist violence. It's like I found that was my experience. Like it was like slick in that kind of way. Because then it also just be for someone who is into the nonviolence thing. Well, he's just advocating for nonviolence. Like it's opaque enough to kind of have like multiple reads to try to get you to advocate for the movie in a way, depending on where you're positioning. It's that slick shit.
Well, I also think like not depicting any of that, it makes it also for these white liberal audiences, it's a sanitized version of the movement then as well, right? That is curated for them to say like, see, these are just nice black people who want schools and want to be able to run the society the way that they think they should, and they're the majority in this country. Like, shouldn't they be able to do that? You know, it doesn't deal with the struggle that way. You know, all the violence is depicted as just from the state, which is, I mean, I don't have an issue with that, but like, it's just it's maybe I do. I mean, it's just a watering down and a sanitization or an airbrushing, right, of what the actual struggle was like.
Well, you know what, I'll say this. Well, because I think my issue with the depicting of the violence is like how they situate the crisis of oppression is, and it's kind of like some of the lines, like, you know, I can't be a man, we can't grow, we can't do this. It's done through this focus that we could only prove that through like clubs and high brutality, the burning of things. Like, what about the actual structural things other than like the most severe brutality, which I do think needs to be talked about, right? Because that severe brutality also comes from the radical response to what was already degrading, right? That's how it is. You up it when people are like responding, right? So it's like they always make that precipice like something so I don't want to use sensation. Well, they sensationalize the reality in order to kind of like not have a real conversation of the actual structures and how they work throughout the totality, so they can always go back to liberal democracy is really what my point is.
Yeah, just this last little section of speech, because he says, I'm, you know, he talks about the naked terrorism again. He says, I'm not talking about words. I'm talking about violence, which people are baton charged by police, beaten up. I'm talking about police firing on unarmed people. I'm talking about the indirect violence you get through starvation. I'm talking about hopelessness, the desolation in transit camps. Now that I think that all put together, that constitute more terrorism than the words these words these men have spoken here, and they stand charged while white society is not charged. And I think to Mtume's point there, you know, there's police brutality in that statement, right? And but then there's like he goes to sort of a hopelessness and despair there. But again, it's not really laid out like that is a structured condition of apartheid, right? Of not being able to you know, run your own society and your own land and all of that. But yeah.
No, that's why I thought, again, whatever review I was reading that made that point, that makes me uncomfortable, that the film technically does introduce you through some of these statements and dialogue, Biko's politics. It just leaves out all the context. It leaves out like the methodology of how he reached these conclusions. It leaves out all of the other discussions and debates and arguments and study he would have been engaged in with others in the struggle. You know, and then it of course leaves out, as you and Mtume are pointing out, what he might have had to say off record or outside of Donald Woods's purview about his public presentation. That to me, it's clear that obviously there's some consideration for what do I say publicly versus what I want to do privately. How do I want to engage publicly these questions around communism, socialism, armed struggle, Pan-Africanism, etc. And we don't know that if, or not shown in the film, if what he's saying on trial or in front of Donald Woods is tactics, if it led to some other debate he had. Like we don't even see we don't see him talk to his wife. Like, I mean, she shows up to look at his body. She shows up to give a side eye to his potential girlfriend or whatever.
She's a mourner. She's a mourner.
So like nowhere do we see, like even with Dr. Rempele, we don't see him, like there's no like, Steve, you know, we were reading this and this is why you know, like it's none of that. It's just so technically, yes, he would have said the point about, you know, you all are pink, but you call yourselves white. And we're not violent, but we're in some conflict now. Like he did all of that, but it is sort of, yeah, it's undermined so that the presentation is to this white liberal potential audience is, you know, these are okay. He was acceptable. He's no longer a threat, of course, because he's been assassinated, and we're not really going to get into any of that in the film. So, you know, and the unidirectional overt violence of the Afrikaners is bad. Not the structural society, even if it gets referenced in that one clip. And because we see it being properly addressed by the British superhero and the press. So, not only do I need to go and learn more and be reminded more of where Biko was in all of this, but now I have to engage in more study with my children because I've imposed this on them. And
well, Clark Kent ain't got nothing on Donald Woods. That's all we gotta say.
He never had to skate in and Woods had to put on his uniform too. His what do they call it? Frock? Is that the priest's frock?
Yeah,
you know,
which was so hard for him. You know,
rough.
He rough.
He had to ride in a trunk, Mtume. He had to ride in a trunk,
and
he
ride in a trunk? And he broke his cover by cursing at some wild people jumping on the truck.
The other thing, by the way, I got to say that, you know what really bothered me, maybe more than anything else in this film, oddly, was the dance he does when he crosses the border. That fucking dance. Because you're in another movie, it's supposed to be the comedic relief. It's like Will Ferrell was who I thought of in that moment. It's like he's Will Ferrell on Saturday Night Live, and I was like, because Biko was still beaten and dead. Africans are still in apartheid, but you made it across, and he
says, "Sorry, I learned it in school."
Well, I mean, this is a general thing. It's this thing about, and I actually think it's particularly with American films when they depict Africa, is African people as joyous and African struggle as a kind of joyful thing. So even when they film the protests, there's this way they like to film the protests in a way of a kind of like joyful noise. So Black folk are treated as this like exotic like being that has been like denied like a human dignity, and the example of their humanity is their joy. And I think that's why they have like the attraction to the sonics of what would be the music from the region too, and they would put it in there because it has this kind of like these like bright overtures. So it like, you know, I mean, I've seen it growing up. Like, you know, I had like an old white teacher who used to always play like Ladies in Black Mambazo, and she would get all like, you know, really, really excited and shit. And I'd be like, or like Graceland when it came out. Remember, like,
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, dog. Like, it's real. Yeah, come on, let's throw it all out there. It's bullshit. But the way, and I grew up in New York, and I went to school around a lot of white liberals for a few years, so I saw a lot of this, and like you could see how they would position themselves, and it's like this joy thing, right? But I think also that the truth of that is they need to think that Black people are like that, because what's the alternative? George,
That's it.
Asada.
Hey, Paul
BLA,
Simon,
Daruba.
Paul Simon, Graceland, so Lin-Manuel could Hamilton.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So it's like, you know, the alternative in their brain is they, you know, they can't have Daruba in their heads, man. That can't sit in their consciousness. That should have them just like shaking. It can't happen. You know, or the real Steve Biko. The real Steve
story
Biko.
of being in the police car when the word came out that Asada broke out is classic, and it speaks to that very point. Laughing at the cops, like, yeah, look at, and that's what they're like. Oh no, please make another cry freedom. Somebody make another. Oh my God. Yo. Hey, Jared, I don't know where we are, but just seeing stuff coming through my email, your show tomorrow is gonna be off the hook. I don't know if you know.
Oh man, I'm mad I'm missing it live.
This I just got an email with all these pieces being written from all over the world about the scissors. So yeah, I can't wait to read. It's gonna be exciting.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
No, I mean, there's a lot to it, and you know, most of what it'll be tomorrow is, I think, people responding to the politics of the letter itself. I do think that that's the thrust of where we should engage to some extent, although it does seem like there is, you know, there's a lot of questions, I think, for the signers, for sure, and clarity, I think, that needs to be made from their end of things of what the process actually was, because there also seems to be clearly that many of them didn't know the contents of the letter, the venue of the letter, or the time of the publication, which obviously are like very significant things to consider. I don't know what they knew in terms of what it was about, even, you know. I'm not really clear on that, but it's
Renee is asking about spread. You'll make a spreadsheet.
Yeah, we probably will have a spreadsheet of some kind, but you know, I think there's going to be more that's going to come out, I think, about all of that, and there's some things that I know that I can share tomorrow, but you know, I think that there will be some kind of investigative piece, I think, about the whole thing that probably comes out. But nonetheless, it's also, I think, part of what people are responding to is that in certain ways, I mean, for some of these academics, they would have absolutely signed on to this letter, no problem, even, you know, and then it becomes the backlash to it, which I think is really encouraging, And I spoke to one of the signers of the letter who was not happy with the whole thing, who is actually said they were very encouraged by people's responses, the negative responses people had to the letter, which I thought was good to hear from them. But yeah, there's more to say about all of it. But I do think that yeah, it's good for us to confront the political framing, because one of the things that's also happening is that there's another group of people who are saying, like, you know, people are being, you know, mean to Mumia, or people are, you know, denigrate. I had somebody who posts that we hate Black thought at millennials are killing capitalism, and that's why we're doing a response to the letter. And then there's like people who are
okay.
And then there's people, like, there are Iranian groups too, like liberal and reformist Iranian groups, who are also running, being like, yes, this letter is exactly right, and you anti-imperialists are fucking it up by, you know, going too hard against these scholars for saying what needs to be said, and we actually agree. So yeah, there's all of that we got to address it more. But yeah,
Yeah.
you guys, you want to say something to me? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I look forward to watching. It's weird. One of the responses, the thoughts that I had when I read that letter, that really terrible thing, was, well, maybe people are going to start saying what they believe with all their chest. Because
I don't think so.
Well, no, exactly. And like, I was like, and I think with Jab, when you did your, you know, and then, you know, we've all been texting about it, you know, since it happened, and in various different chats. And I had this glimmer that I was like, well, you know, this is abhorrent in the moment, but, you know, if you are in these spaces at least a little bit, you know about the conversations that are public, the conversations that are like mid-public, and the conversations that are like completely behind the scenes. You know, like people know a little bit and they say some shit, right? But then like, and then the conversations that are like one-on-one. Yeah. And like, you can't say anything about that, or you get cautioned about, you know, because for various reasons. So when you know too much, or you know a little bit more, I'm like, all right, can you say that with all your chest, please? So then, like, let's just get into it. So that's kind of my thing, but I guess that's not going to happen. We're going to get a lot of just now kind of reversing and reworking, and you know, that's interesting in itself. So I don't know what else to say to that, as that's just kind of my thoughts.
Yeah. There'll be more that we'll say about it tomorrow. I mean, I think it seems to me that there were multiple people who agreed to do it based upon longtime political relationships without much thought, and not realizing what kind of a thing it would be, you know, which I think is something that is questionable enough in itself, right? Of just agreeing to do something because somebody's a longtime friend or comrade, without kind of really having clarity about what it is. But there's other elements of it. And I do also think there are people who are not going to unsign it, or who I mean, we know there's people who signed that letter who absolutely, that is what they believe. And they, you know, whether that would be those exact words that they would put it in, you know, they absolutely hold those political views, you know. And so yeah,
I mean, ideally they would, I would, if they agree with it, they should keep their name on it. And ideally the discussions and debates would take place principally from there. And again, I don't think yeah, I'm with that. If that's what you think, say it, and let's talk about it. But that is often not what happens, and then people retreat to preferred biased camps. And then what I think ends up happening is just a lot of a quiet omission and marginalizing of people you disagree with. There's never an actual engagement with the point. So I only meant to mention it now as a sort of well, one, because I just saw this email with all these links to these think pieces that have been written over the last 24 hours. But and also to tease the show tomorrow, but also because I do think that there are some overlaps with our discussion here. For instance, I thought about the letter and its response when I read some of what, as I mentioned earlier, what was said about Cry Freedom from South Africans at the time, saying this is, it's an imperfect document, but it is going to help our cause. It again, not in an exact parallel, but it raises issues, maybe not in ways we would want, but that need to be discussed and put on the table. And but at the same time, I'm also, in terms of these parallels, let's all just be more honest and clear about what lane we're in and identifying our lane, and then see where we do and do not agree and why. Again, like Dhoruba said some years ago, I always thought it was one of my favorite points that he's made. Everything should be on the table that's not strategy and tactics. And I 100% agree. Like, that's it. And if we disagree, so be, like, it doesn't have to be like, again, it don't have to be all this hostility. It just is disagreement. But yeah. So I look forward to that tomorrow. Yeah.
Me too. In this movie, the other things that happen, so you have the court scene. Basically, right after that, he's agreeing to go support some student movement in Cape Town, and he gets captured on his way there. Basically, is what happened. This Biko, and from there, he's very quickly killed. Even though in reality it was 30 days later. Like, he's very quickly, and you get the scene with the white doctor who's urging them to get him to a specialist because he has he's done these tests and he knows that basically he's he could die basically, and that he has serious injuries at this point. And they give him it's kind of a Freddie Gray, I mean, I realize it's before that, but that's what it reminded me of the scene in the back of the car,
The
all
rough
the way,
ride. Yep.
700 miles to the hospital that they're sending him to, because they won't see him in the hospital the cops don't want him to be seen in the local hospital because they say he'll escape, which of course is ridiculous. He can't even move, right? Like, so you get that brutality, then you get the funeral, and all of that, and then you get, basically from there, you get this escalation as Woods goes and takes pictures of him in the morgue, and you get that trying to create, as you were kind of saying, Jab, I think, like a kind of Emmett Till effect is sort of what he's supposed to be, going with as a journalist. And I don't remember exactly, but they figure out that he's doing this, and figure out his allegiances a little bit more, and that he's continuing to pursue this, and he and his family, which I really do think are important scenes, again, for the white liberal audience, because I think there is a whole way. There's like, okay, well, the first hour we dealt with Biko, and then he's dead at an hour and 10 minutes in, and there's an hour and a half of the movie left somehow. And so they're trying then to show that this apartheid Afrikaner government doesn't just go after the black people, but they actually go after white liberals, right? And they get some T-shirts that have, I don't know what it's supposed to be on them, some kind of like skin irritant, burning kind of powder or whatever. And the kids put them on
Biko T-shirts, right? They're on Biko
Yes.
T-shirts.
On Biko T-shirts, and the kids open the package and start putting them on, and the little girl's face is all burned, and they're all trying to get, this is a funny scene to me. I mean, it's fucked up, but like, they're trying to get, they're like getting her underwater and all of this stuff and calling the doctor and everything, and the little boy is just like, Mom, Dad, my hands are burning, and they're basically like, run upstairs and take care of yourself. Like, he's like, I don't know what to do. And they're like, look, we're trying to save the blonde daughter here. You go take care of yourself, 5-year-old.
You're male. Go figure your shit out.
And I think that scene, I remember that scene as a kid, seeing it. and be like, God, this is really fucked up, you know? And I think that is the point for white people, is like, you need to connect in with these white kids that got terrorized by these Afrikaners.
But
And so then the next morning they have, the Biko Kami headquarters is like spray painted outside of their house. And
and I did stop the movie at that point to rant briefly to my daughters about, you know, I don't even remember what I said, but it was something along the lines of they've erased the communist struggle. They've erased even mention of communism. I don't think the word is even said. They've erased the armed struggle. They're doing the same thing of it's the Russians are bad again, and anything that is radical in the African world is imposed by outside Russian agitators. And you know, I was like, and then I also did want to point out, like, you know, in terms of this, the subtlety of what is done in film. I mean, it's just a quick throwaway, and it's not, they don't even have to say anything, and it's going to carry, especially in the 80s, so much symbolism. If you see just a glimpse of that, it's like, oh shit, you know, and then particularly to a white liberal American audience, everything just floods in. It's like, oh shit, the damn Soviet Union. Oh, yeah. So I was like, that's wild. Oh, I did make the point that, so they know enough to include this, but to include it in a very shady, disturbed, sideways way. So yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, you know, thinking about I'm thinking about the whole, like, you know, trip of the movie. The trip, I meaning, like, you know, Woods trying to break out and get to England, you know, get back to the fatherland or the motherland or whatever they would call it. I always think about this function for liberals, like, you know, I'm thinking of the Upper West Side 1987 liberal who would go to the movie theater and go watch this movie on their Friday night or the, you know, afternoon. And it like serves two functions, right? Because they're never going to do no shit like this. The most they're going to do is, you know, send $20 a month to some humanitarian aid thing. That's what they're going to go do, right? This movie,
they might have voted for Bernie.
Voted for Bernie, or I don't know who would have been in 87. You know, maybe they vote for Jesse. Maybe they advocate for Jesse. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe would they go that far? Who knows, right? But they voted for Dinkins, definitely, in New York. They definitely went for Dinkins. But what it does is it provides this function that they don't really have to do nothing. Like Woods ends up becoming like the adventure. So they get the adventure. And like Attenborough provides the adventure. And I think that's why because I'm like, I was watching the movie going, an hour and a half of this shit? Like, what is your interest? And you need to see the white and liberal as the adventurer, right? And the fact that he did all this, so now all you have to do is basically go buy his book. Right? And when he comes to speak, you know, go to his when he comes to Lincoln Center and does a speech at Symphony Space, you're in the audience, you know, and you're, you know, whatever. It's just so bullshit, you know, but it is the function definitely largely of that group.
He's like the non-violent Jason Bourne, you know, in the second half of the movie. Like
when the wife is like really on that road getting in the car, I'm like, oh wow. Okay. You know, running, and then like, you know, it's like he gets like different people. He gets like this black person, that black person, you know, it's just and it's and then and the whole time it's Kevin Kline, and he's just fucking boring. Like, he's just boring.
It's very boring. Like for a sequence of hour and 30 minutes, of which at least an hour of it is basically action and like what would you call it, like thriller, like genre of film, right? It is incredibly boring.
Like, yeah, I don't know. Does Attenborough not do action films well? Is this like a blind spot for him? Like, because like Yeah, it's
I
like,
don't
wow.
remember him directing anything like this before, which is interesting that he would choose to do it in this way. But I guess maybe Woods' book is that.
Like, you had me fiending for like Michael Mann to take over the last part of the film. Like, get somebody in here who could put some explosions and some shit.
Well, then you would have had white people giving long speeches where they know everything about black people more than black people do.
I don't know. I was just trying to think, like,
I'm fucking messing with you. Yes.
Give me some heat scenes and some bank robbery scenes. Like, do some shit. Like, because your point, it was super boring. Again, even political bias aside, it just was boring. So, yeah, I was like, yeah, somebody blow some shit up, put a landmine in the road or something. Yeah, we get the dance at the end. I was like, oh my God. I was like,
with a little, they play a little music when he does the dance too, don't they? Like a little soundtrack.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it was.
And shout out, as brought up earlier, to Jeffrey from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air for coming through in the clutch and helping him get across the border in the end.
That was a wild. Yeah, it is sometimes nice to go back and see some of this old. You'd be like, oh, I forgot so-and-so was. Yeah, I see so-and-so. Yeah, they had a career before they showed up on my TV show. Oh, let me find out. Oh, shit. Michael Bay. That's what I meant, KJ. That's who I meant, not Michael. I was thinking Michael Bay, not Michael Bay.
Well, the movie would have been longer because it had all been in slow-mo. You'd had sweeping shots of a sweeping pan shot of Zimbabwe with the car coming into the frame, and then Kevin Kline slow-mo going like this. The goat scene would have been like forever.
Right. We even had a goat scene. The road was blocked by goats. It was like, son, oh my God.
They really needed to shoot that. We really needed to see the road being blocked by goats.
And especially after speed running Biko, like you pointed out, like you just boom, 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 he's dead, boom, 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 he's in the thing, boom, 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 funeral, boom, 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 sheep. Like, what? What? So yeah, man. I don't know. Thumbs down, definitely thumbs down.
No need to watch this movie ever. If you haven't seen it, no need to ever see it. It's just.
And once again, salute to all of us that survived the 80s. Like, we had a lot to overcome. And I will, again, pat myself and ourselves on the back for, we deserve. Now I want the credit. I want the credit for having survived and made it.
So yeah, I mean, though, just plot wise for people to understand, so we fill in a couple quick gaps. Yeah, he has to get to Lesotho, which is like small little. I don't even really understand all of it. I guess it's part of the UK Commonwealth or whatever. It's like the little section that is in the midst of South Africa. He has to get there, then he has to be flown to Botswana to get out to the UK or whatever. And they're going by small plane. And that's the other little tension there, besides him getting there. There is a whole, when he's crossing the border and he has to do the fake documents and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like you said earlier, to me, I was getting heavy, like trying to sneak out of East Germany. Like, he's got to get one over on the Stasi here or something like that. Like, it's
totally Stasi. Yeah, I was like, is this the spy or some shit? It's such bullshit.
Yeah, and of course, I mean that in the way that these things are depicted in films too, because it there's a bunch of films that have that kind of. I've been watching this stupid Star City. Is that what it's called? It's like it's a USSR. It's about the USSR space program on Apple TV. It's fucking horrible. Like, the whole thing is just like a season. It's only one season so far, but it's just like a season-long anti-communist propaganda film. It's like, but yeah. So we still make this shit. Apparently, we still need to demonize a country that has not existed for 25 years or whatever.
This is the modern version of it, but Apple TV has something I almost pushed play on because Paul Dano is in it playing some Russian something, and what's his name is playing Putin. What's the actor's name? Jude Law is playing Putin. Yeah, I see it. And late last night I almost clicked play on it, but I didn't get there. I was like, yeah, what are they doing here? This is, yeah. Anyway,
I know we're going off the rails, but like not to ever endorse Chris Rock, but I always did laugh at when he had the Oscars made for the Jude Law.
Oh, I forgot what he said.
He was like, and then we get Jude Law. Like he was just like, who is Jude Law? And then Sean Penn got all mad. He's like, Jude Law happens to be one of our finest actors.
Of course.
And I was like, it's a joke.
Yeah, sit down, Sean. Take it easy, Sean.
Go hang out. Go to Mexico.
Yeah, I was gonna say go find Chapo again or some shit,
Exactly.
man. Go get out of here with this.
Go to Haiti on Wyclef's dime again. You know what I'm saying, you jackass.
Or just shut up and make a good film. Like, could you do that? Like, try that again. Could like if Jude is so good, make a good movie with him then. Shit. Anyway, I thought, yeah, but I do think, to your point, whether it's about the old Soviet Union or the new Russia, the plan is still at play. You know,
or
Iran. Nothing has ever gone, or Iran. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're worried about being shot down out of the air, basically, because they're not following the law in South Africa, which says that any plane that flies over South Africa has to land in South Africa, which also is crazy, but I guess that was true. But
yeah, I mean, I think this is because it invokes also. I think that invokes fascism, right? In that kind
for
of
sure,
way, right? And it makes them think that it's now turned into, which it was a fascist state. I'm not gonna say it's not, but it's how liberalism uses fascism not in a radical kind of way. They recognize it as it's like a social degradation, really, and and Nazism. I mean, really from the 50s on in American movies is prevalent, right? And then we know. I mean, shit, we did it in Rambo 2, where the kind of the guy is basically like a communist and a fascist at once. The Bortowski, right? He's both, right? He looks like an SS soldier, but it's a Brit guy doing a really bad Russian accent. So it's total Hannah Arendt.
Yeah, because after 1950, they were basically the same anyway.
Yeah,
from the perspective of the U.S., they're
no
basically the same. There's no difference.
Just
and that's why we end up in 2026 with the Hitler, Stalin, Mao line, of that, just recite as a given.
Or even it's funny, like if you watch like the Twilight Zone, and whenever he would do his authoritarian episodes, he would always do Stalin. He would always say Hitler and Stalin. He didn't do Mao. He didn't seem to be Rod Serling didn't seem to be interested in China ever, but he would always do Hitler and Stalin and Napoleon, and then he would throw Napoleon every now and then as a kind of like a triumvirate. But his big ones were Hitler and Stalin, and he'd always kind of put them together as the same kind of thing. Probably because Cultural Revolution hadn't started yet when Twilight Zone started. Probably maybe that's why they didn't really get into Mao just yet. Maybe
they hadn't evolved as the enemy yet, and people
didn't really know.
Didn't what's his name do a bad accent in his new Napoleon film, which I also didn't see? But what's his name? The Joker.
Who did the
Oh, that's right. He played Napoleon recently.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah. And I didn't see it, but I assume he didn't do some stellar French or or what's his not French? He was technically Corsican, right? Didn't they have a Corsican distinct accent? I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, all of that becomes so weird too, right? Because you're just speaking English as a French person, like, so, like,
and it's also 400, 300 years ago. Like, you don't actually know what their accents are like.
What they would have sounded like, yeah.
Yeah, there's been so much difference and change. I mean, even the British accent, they say, sounds closer to the Southern accent now than it did. Yeah, it's...
Well,
let me give. So first of all, shout out. We did get a couple. Appreciate these things. So Kevin, Rocky IV. I know Hiram will probably want to battle for this belt. So but
no, I deferred to Hiram for that. I'll be in the audience. But Rocky. But oh wait, no, wait, right. I got the chronology wrong. That is in the 80s. That's right.
It is in the 80s.
Oh, it's the.
Well, hey, look, if you ever want to have a 4-person round table, I'll show up and hang out. But I have no problem deferring to Hiram for that one.
We might have to do a 4-person for that one. I mean but Rocky IV is one of the most Imperial 80s of 80s films.
Did you see the version he remade during COVID? Stallone re-edited a version that I've seen discussed on YouTube. I haven't watched it, but it apparently has some significant changes to it. Like he was like, "Fuck it, we're stuck in the house. I'm gonna fix my Russian movie." I have to look into the but I did see at least one YouTube video about it.
Oh my God,
which I thought was fascinating. That's hilarious. But no, I'm not. Look, Imperial 80s is literally my favorite series on YouTube, and Hiram, a legendary first tier guest. So I have no problem.
We got to have you back on for Coming to America, I think.
Now that I would happily look. I'll come back for whatever. But there's plenty. Coming to America, Rocky, pick them. The Coming to America. Oh my God. Oh yeah. My God. Oh my God, it's a household favorite too, I have to admit.
Thanks for this as well. Appreciate it. I have to figure out
how
we give those out.
Yeah,
I don't know. I was just thinking that. I was like, I don't know how we have to do it.
How do people claim
you give it to someone, maybe?
So you have to give it. Like the host of the channel has to give the gift.
I guess so. We'll figure it out and then we'll do some kind of giveaway.
So does that mean if I've never given them away, that I have a store of gifts to give away that people have that I have to find and give them? Oh, I didn't know that made us have to do more work. We got to do more work now.
I'm not engaging with this anymore. I know
when it's a joke. Jared going to choose a good movie?
We choose. So we have a couple we're gonna come up with some pretty soon.
Have you had any Imperial 80s films that you liked? Like that you thought, have you covered any that you thought were good? The Five Heartbeats is a 90s film, by the way.
90.
Yeah. 90, yeah.
We haven't covered much of them.
Do the Right Thing.
I like.
Yeah,
right. But we did that. I mean, I like Prince of Darkness. I like Prince of Darkness, actually.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I think it's a good
I like Do the Right Thing. I'm not going front. I like it.
But on our rewatch, I was very much like, I liked it a whole lot.
You all fucked it up. But I sat quietly and said I liked it.
I did like it a lot growing up, like for years and years and years.
Even to like my 20s, I had started souring on it the last like 10, maybe 15 years, and then like with this last watch, I was really low on it. There's things about it I like a lot, but the things I'm very low about, especially thinking about Dinkins. I think because did Mom Donnie was Mom Donnie in Office when we did that? Maybe he was like, it was like he had already won the prize. It was like we knew he was gonna win. It made me think a lot about Dinkins because he's invoked Dinkins so many times. So I got to start thinking about that era again.
if I do have, you all offered this and then Todd ruined it. I do still want to be the one. I want to be involved with
We have to do
school
school
days.
days. Yeah.
So
We can get
even
Todd.
more than Rocky IV and Coming to America, that would be one I would want to be involved with, especially if we
Let's
can't
do
get
that.
Todd. And Todd is bullshitting, and I'm going to call him out on that forever. I can't fucking believe he said no to that.
We need
and
Todd for that. Come on, Todd.
I'm going to bother him. I'm not done. I'm not done with
Good.
him on that. That's some bullshit. 3 Days of the Condor. I love that movie. I thought
That's
that,
the
but I thought
70s.
that was a 70s
70s
movie.
movies. Yeah.
70s.
70s movie.
But I did love the movie though.
I still kind of, I have to admit, I have a soft spot for First Blood, even though it's fucked up in many ways. Like us doing this won't preclude me from going back to and rewatching with joy as Stallone goes nuts on that police department.
Yeah, and it's deeply problematic, but I have a lot of love for RoboCop. I think RoboCop does a lot of good shit in it. It's just Verhoeven's a weirdo. And he's still, he's a weirdo. He's off, but
They Live. Oh my God.
We have to do They Live.
We're gonna do They Live. We've been floating the idea of a Carpenter month. We'll see if we do that.
Well, I did get a request for Child's Play. Osuna wants to do Child's Play, so we have to.
We have to do Child's Play. There's no, we can't avoid that.
And Osuna was like we were chatting about it, so we have to get Suna into do Child's Play.
The Hunt for Red October. I saw that right as I got out of boot camp. I thought that was a 90s movie though.
It is 90s. In 90. Yeah. My dad loves that fucking movie. I hate that movie.
There is a great, I don't know if it's accurate, but I thought it was fascinating. There's a fascinating documentary about what that film, the real history that film means to deny.
Oh, I would love to see that.
There was something happened with an incident with a Russian and U.S. sub that sunk once there's some real shit in there about the CIA creating a fake thing and even building a fake rig to go get the sub before the Russians could get it, but making it look like it was an oil digging some wild. It was. And then the documentary got into this question about who is Tom Clancy, like what is his real relationship to this shit, because he seems to know
for real
this insurance.
Who the fuck is Tom Clancy? I mean, that'll be when we get to our 90s series. There's going to be a whole expose.
You need to have a Tom Clancy run.
My dad and the Jack Ryan movies,
because they're at like Danger, how are you
Patriot Games.
You an insurance agent or whatever he was, and then all of a sudden all of these, like your story's got all of these details in it.
Is he Ian Fleming? Is he like an Ian Fleming? Right.
And then he's given speeches where he has said where the point has been, if I'm not, well, my paraphrasing is he's saying, I'm not admitting that I'm some whatever, but I am admitting that my movies are meant to be playing a role politically in the world to convey a pro-US military presence in the world. Like he's at least somewhat similar to Attenborough with Cry Freedom. He's saying, I have a politics I'm trying to convey here. And he's even given in one speech I saw, he's saying to the military, he's talking to the military, like, and you all need me. He's like, he's braggadocious. Like, he's arrogant. Like, he's like, you all need me. I'm writing your shit. I'm making you look hot. Anyway, yeah. Look, your series is never going to lack for material. So,
This comment I saved from earlier on.
Wait.
Can you see how the logic of Afro-pessimism's analysis actually describes the logic of this film very accurately, or how Afro-pessimism analysis? This was to you, Dr. Ball.
Look, I mean, I admit that I have an unpopular appreciation for Afro-pessimism, and I do understand that some of the short answer would be yes. I mean, in the sense that that the concept having some history related to apartheid struggle in South Africa and yeah, I'm not prepared to give a better answer right now, other than to say yes, I see it, and I don't know, somewhere I'll think about how to better answer that. But yeah,
I mean, I think it fits within this idea right around, and I'm not well enough versed in Afro pessimism really to have like a really serious take here, but like the whole idea of a denial, is it civil life or civic life, right? That Black people are
social
not
life,
are
yeah, they're socially dead, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a socially dead angle, but there's also this part about civil society, right? And that Black people can't fit within the confine, or Black politics can't fit within the confines of civil society. And I think like within the context of a film like this, you can see that, right? Because it's like the only thing that rises is what Donald Woods is looking to from Biko, and he's like basically, yeah, he's liberal enough that we can have a conversation with him, we can dialogue with him, but actually the politics that everybody's engaged in are excised from the film itself, really.
Yeah, and honestly, if you think about it, we're also watching this film from the vantage point of that version of apartheid, or that stage is not here anymore. Think about the film made in 87 from that vantage point. It's actually very much a defeated film. The only person who gets to win essentially is Woods crossing the border and being an advocate. But there is no displayed clear path for liberation or revolution for any of the people of the Black folk of South Africa. So in the film,
and
so we have to think about it from like literally that clear standpoint. Right. If we think about it, and I think that person's question could show that they actually stay socially dead. Well,
but also my what I struggle with is that not an expert in Afro pessimism either. I'm more familiar with Frank's work specifically, and for me it starts not with Afro pessimism, but his book about his life, or what he says about his life in South Africa, and loving the idea that a Black man in the United States would say, you know what, I'm trying to go down there and go to war with these motherfuckers. Like so I admit a biased affinity for that. So if out of that emerges Frank and others people's analysis around Afro pessimism, I'm going to want to hear it out. In comparison to Cry Freedom, I would much prefer to have seen a film depicting that story too, by the way, because all of that history gets left out. Like, we don't have any reference to it at all. So, but somewhere between what Jared said, what Mtume said, yeah, and what I'm admitting about where I am at a couple hours in on this and not having prepared, I don't have a better answer. I think, somewhere in there is a better answer. Yeah.
We do have plans at some point. We haven't solidified to hit up some of these, but
we gotta do all. We have to do all three of them. Actually, we have to do all three of them. We do. All three of them have to, yeah.
Were any of the, I forgot the order, were Wild Style and Style Wars, did any of them hit 80?
Yeah,
Star Wars.
Wild Style.
Yeah, both of them.
Wild Style's like 81 is Wild Style.
Yeah, they're in the 80s.
God,
83.
I forgot all about the hip hop films.
Yeah. Because Crush Group.
Yeah, Star Wars. I love that movie, even though I know as I watch it critically, I will have negative things to say about certain things. But
yeah,
I love Star Wars.
I get them. I confuse the two in my memory.
Star Wars is the doc.
Star Wars is the document.
Is the doc.
The one with Chase Lay in it, and yeah.
Oh, rest in peace to him too, man. Slap your favorite DJ. Oh, man, we get
the drama king.
The drama king, and my babies are in college. God damn it. Depressed. Yeah, I
mean, you can listen to the Drama King as loud as you want today, Jared. It won't bother anybody.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I need to do. That's what I need to do. Hey, yeah, I look forward to, in some cases, being a participant and audience member for some of but all of those is going to be dope. I can't, I completely forgot about the 80s films and hip hop though. That's deep.
I mean, break-in's going to be a trip because there's no break-in in it. So, it's... And
is Breakin' 2 in the 80s also?
Yeah. Well, remember at the end of Breakin', they announced Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo at the end credits.
I don't remember. I don't remember enough about
it's a
that.
canon film.
It's
a canon movie made by those guys.
Couple of Israelis making hip hop films in the 80s.
Holy shit.
Yes. With Jean-Claude Van Damme, who eventually becomes their star, doing a wiggle dance. Another dance.
Oh my god. They made that too?
Oh yeah. He was one of their last stars.
Yeah, so
Bloodsport.
what's the Bloodsport, which one we'll do soon.
And Kickboxer. No, I think and Kickboxer.
Holy shit, man. And Fame is in there too now. Fame. Yeah. All right. Well, long live Imperial 80s. It's gonna be dope.
We will be doing Teen Wolf at some point too. Yeah, absolutely.
We almost did it recently. It just didn't happen. It was actually on a docket. We just had to move it. But that'll come.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to do Teen Wolf. We brought it up, and somebody thought we were referencing the series, which was on like MTV or whatever, and like, no, man, like the Teen Wolf was the 80s. Like,
listen,
just stuff gets
everybody watching this. Go find somebody you knew who survived the 80s and give them a hug today. Like,
that's right.
No words needed. Just
yeah, same year as Back to the Future came out. For Michael J. Fox.
Wow.
All right. On that note, we will wrap up. Dr. Ball is going to be back with me tomorrow, along with a panel of respondents to the Guardian letter, the 2 blades of a scissor or whatever. That's the other thing. I was like, is it a scissors or a scissor? I don't. But anyway,
don't get. That's
I'm not sure about the grammar of this letter either.
Yeah.
Peace, everybody.